13 and 14 are fine. 15 is not fine. The DEC is responsible for the stormwater management program in New York State, and they determine what guidelines we need to meet, and they base that upon where our project is in its design and approval process. And the New York State DEC decided that for their program that we need to meet the 2008 design manual.
I need to go back for a second. With the ambulance corps that you say won't be there as of right now. So if you come later, that's going to change the plan and the development, correct?
Right, that would be a brand new application before this board.
Because I read that nothing at all will alter the development of what you're building and what you're doing. So if that's not in there now, will that have any effect of what you're looking to seek approval of?
No, it's not in there. It's not part of this application.
So if they're down the road, they're going to come in with a new application.
Yes, but the structure of what's been approved now, water and everything else, you're going to have to break down and still run more water lines or whatever else.
Oh, could the infrastructure that's being built now accommodate that? Yes.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking about, so to make sure that I'm very clear with it.
Yes, I didn't understand the question.
Give a more detailed answer. Okay.
16 is fine. 17 is not fine. What that refers to is a stormwater management basin. It's right here. The stormwater management basin that's going to treat runoff from the volunteer housing site is located on an adjacent property by a lot of the subdivision, and it appears that the concern was that that lot 51, would be responsible for the maintenance of that stormwater management basin, and it's not the case. The homeowners association with the volunteer housing will be responsible for maintenance of the stormwater management basin. 18 is it's this very lot that we're talking about, lot 51, and basically they're not crazy about the configuration of that lot, and what we're saying is that lot meets all the zoning criteria. It's a conforming lot.
19?
19 is fine. 20 is, we object to. They're suggesting a conservation easement and a deed restriction for the wetlands and the buffer, and that's not required, and that's the purview of the New York State DEC, and they're looking into that and what they're going to make us require, and we'll do whatever the New York State DEC tells us to.
21?
That's fine.
22?
22. This we've demonstrated that the project has adequate maneuverability for emergency vehicles, so that's been done.
23?
23 is fine.
24?
24 is similar to the other ones. We're not looking for an updated review. We've been working for many months, and like I said, we're down to bonding and some paperwork with the drainage agency. We're done.
I assume you will comply with all the conditions of which they stated in their letter of July 11th last year.
Yes.
25?
We're fine.
26?
We're fine.
27?
Fine.
Okay, so I believe that takes care of the CPRC reports that I was sent to.
For volunteer housing, we must go through
Okay.
CRG report for the condominium.
Okay. Okay. Ready, Mr. Raj?
Yes.
DPW, December 28th, January 16th.
We're fine.
Building inspector inspect letter January 15th.
We're fine?
Fire inspect letter of January 15th.
We're not fine.
Sorry?
Not fine.
Okay, we'll come back. Treasury Department sources letter of January 15th.
We're fine?
Rockland County Planning Department, I guess we'll come back to that later. Drainage Agency letter of January 15th.
Not fine?
Architectural review letter of December 13th.
Fine?
And Jackson Sozi letter of January 11th.
Fine?
Terry Rice written summary of prior Article 78S dated January 15th.
Fine?
Daniel Richmond Esquire letter of January 7th.
We're not fine?
Your same comments that
Yeah.
you stated apply to it.
That's right.
Same comments applied to both.
Yes.
Okay. And Deborah Seidman letter of January 10th. Same thing.
Yeah.
Mark Shercock letter of January 15th.
We're fine?
Okay, then we have the BB Sherry letter, which you already, okay. Fire inspector letter of January 15th. He's referring to his letter of November, memo of November 16th. Aerial apparatus roads.
Right. Right, so, he's got,
Are any buildings gonna be over 30 feet high?
yes,
Okay, so you require, so, some requirements there for the fire code.
I beg your pardon?
It says in his letter, compliance with appendix D 105 of the fire code of New York State are required for all buildings over 30 feet.
That's correct, and we have that,
So you're okay with that?
yes.
Okay.
So,
The drainage agency,
but you know what, he's got a few comments. Let's see. If that's his only comment, then we're fine.
No, well, just to make it clear,
No, that
Mr.
was-
Buckley's letter, January 15th, refers to his November 16th, 2011 memorandum. So I think you should say whether you comply or not, or any objection to his
November 16th letter.
November
Okay.
16th letter.
Fine. Going to his November 16th letter, we're fine with number one, that's been done. We're fine with number two, they'll meet the NFPA standards for fire hydrants. We're not fine with number three. He's talking about the dead end of a fire access road, and he's saying the driveway E29 does not comply. It's been checked and it does comply.
You got that in writing?
From him, no.
Okay, so he's the person that will have to give letter of knowledge that it is approved, because going and wording saying that
You won't sign off.
it's still invoked as standing. And I'm not gonna accept the fact that someone is standing here and a fire inspector say that it has to be approved. They're gonna give a say saying that it's been approved. If he's not approving it and haven't given a letter, it's not approved.
Moving right along.
You will review this with them, with the fire department?
We'll do our best, but it complies. The fact of the matter is it complies. So,
Then Mr. Buckle will definitely have to put something in writing that is approved.
okay.
Please make note of that.
I have.
Okay.
Number four is, you know, it's gonna be the same as number three.
Sorry?
Number four is gonna be similar to number three. I can see how this is gonna go. That, what he's saying is not all buildings appear to meet this requirement. They do meet this requirement, and so,
If he haven't put it in writing, then you're right, it's gonna go that way, that it has to be in writing and approved.
okay.
That's no way of doing it.
Okay.
Number 5.
Number five, the applicant complies with all federal, state, and town regulations regarding the construction of the gas pipeline.
We went through that earlier. 6. Standpipes will be required.
We'll have to get him to recognize that this is not required. We'll have to get that in writing.
Okay.
Number
Number 7.
Number 7, the answer is yes. And number 8 is the answer answer is, yes, we have.
Yes to what?
Okay, let's,
Those comments were, number 7, are the 3 quarter-inch water lines for domestic water sufficient? The answer is yes. Number 8, sufficient parking must be provided for residents and guests so that fire apparatus access road is not blocked. The answer was yes. on the app.
okay, let's come back to the,
G,
Rockland County planning.
and that letter is dated January 10th. And there are
28.
32 comments.
Sure.
Mental.
Number 1 is, it's the same comment as for volunteer housing regarding the latest plans, and we explained why the plans change and how that's normal. Number 2 we're okay with, number 3 we're okay with. Number 4 is actually 4, 5, and 6. It's the same thing where we're gonna, the notion is that we start the process all over again, as opposed to this ongoing review that's been taking place. So,
Number 7, you're okay with?
yes.
Number 8,
Yeah,
same thing?
same thing.
Things 4, 5, and 6.
And
Number 9.
9 is the same.
Hold on.
What's the second?
Number 10. Water.
10 is fine. 11 is fine.
12.
12 is not fine. The DEC is reviewing the project and will comply with any of their requirements.
13.
13 and 14, it's the same thing. They're suggesting updated reviews be completed by Orange and Rockland and by Columbia Gas. In the case of Orange and Rockland, we've completed our technical review, and in the case of Columbia Gas, we have a no objection letter. We're done with Columbia Gas.
15.
We're okay.
16.
16 is, we
What was
have,
15? I'm sorry.
15 is okay.
Thank you.
16, we have demonstrated safe maneuverability for emergency vehicles.
17.
17, the problem with that comment is that it relates to a visual analysis, and the visual analysis was completed as part of the environmental impact statement.
So therefore,
Therefore, this has been done.
none. 18.
18 fine, 19 fine, 20 fine. 20 is a similar comment to the volunteer housing.
There's two points here.
Oh, the first 20 is fine, the second 20 is not fine.
Okay.
That's with the stormwater, the DEC tells us which regulations to meet, and we're meeting those.
21.
21, 22, and 23 are all fine. 24 is, we actually discussed this last time, and for some reason they're suggesting a maximum retaining wall height of 4 feet, and we've reduced our retaining walls. Our maximum retaining wall height is 12 feet.
And 25.
25, this is another instance where they're not crazy about the lot configuration, and I mentioned earlier about the promenade that circles the pond, and how a portion of the promenade goes over a single-family lot with an easement, and they're objecting to that.
So the lot in question meets, lot 32, you're saying meets the code?
That's correct. Thank you.
26.
Fine.
27.
27 is, they're objecting to the configuration of the project where we have a a condominium-style building located within the same area as the workforce flats, and we have no idea that they have a problem with that, and we don't, and that's the way the plan is.
28, slide 88.
Yeah, this is just a, I think that's just a comment, so that's fine.
30, no, 29.
So you're seeking override of 28? It says it's unclear why the portion of lot 88, meaning adjacent 86, is not being developed as a single-family lot, is separated by 2 roadways, for the remainder of the condominium development would be more compatible with the proposed land uses to the north and south. So you accept, you believe your layout is proper, right?
Right.
30,
Fine,
31,
fine,
32.
fine.
That's care of the GMO, and I believe that takes care of the CDRC report. Are there any questions at this point from anybody on the board? Questions or comments? Anybody from the audience?
There was a comment, there was a comment that some of the condominiums exceeded the 30-foot height. And the fire department's contention is that the third floor has to be above the 30-foot height. That was what the problem was? And you're saying that the ceiling is above the 30-foot height? Is that what?
No, I think the comment is that the 30-foot height triggers requirements for a fire access lane.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's it, that's what we provided, and we'll get,
Well, it's not just a fire access lane. It's being able to get your area ladder, which is the ladder. And comments, yeah, there are some comments and some concerns due to the fact that with the Allen's house that you guys are not asking or seeking approval for right now, with the approval or whatever may happen, later on, you looking to possibly put something there, it will change up the concern of the structure of the land and everything else. So it's some concerns that later on, it might be an issue or problem that the water or anything else could be a major issue with the structure of what you're looking to do. If that's the case, then so what are your plans? I mean, are you,
we're not talking about the ambulance station, are we?
no,
What are we talking about?
talking about the ambulance building that you guys are looking to possibly do later
We are not doing any ambulance building
at all?
at all.
Okay, because you mentioned earlier that is later on you might,
Yeah, tonight, we're not doing any ambulance building.
when I say at all, I mean like, so you're not,
We have no application for an ambulance building, I can't speak to you about that, that's not part of our application.
Any other questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. Before I open up the floor, if there's anybody else from the public that wishes to speak that is not signed on the sign-in sheet, please come up front with more sign-in sheets here on the table. Please sign one out so that we give everybody a chance. As you see, we have a huge crowd, and I want to be fair and give everybody a chance to speak. So I please urge you to try and limit your comments as much as possible. If we can keep them under 5 minutes, it would be great, so that we give everybody a chance to speak. And I also urge you, please, to stick to the merits of the application as it is before us tonight. Remembering, as Mr. Berman said at the outset, that all previous meetings, public hearings, and the minutes of such meetings are all including any court cases and the judge's decisions are all part of the record, so there's really no need to repeat all those things that we've heard so many times already, since it is part of the record. So I urge you again to please limit your comments and limit them to items that we have not heard 3 or 4 or 5 times tonight already. Thank you in advance for your cooperation.
When you come in, please state your name and address for the record.
Everything.
Speakers,
Everything is
Jeremy
in public
Honey.
record. Everything.
Unfortunately, your representatives.
No, not the memorandum of law, not the apology.
Jeremy E. Honey, 39 Barron Lane, Suffolk, New York. I am a lifelong resident of this area. I hiked, camped this area my whole life, except for the many years I was in the Army. So I go back a long way with this project. This is a complete disrespect for the environment, totally. And physically and man-made resources are not being rightly considered here. Water, for instance. Silt will go into the Mulmore River. The Mulmore River, when I was a boy, was deep enough that it was 5 feet, 6 feet deep in a lot of places. Now it's no more than 3 feet deep because of all the silt and stuff's been going in it. And with that goes concrete, cement, lye, and everything else into our water system. The aquifer, this is a major part of the structure of our aquifer. And it is going to take a great deal from the aquifer. I am figuring to be at least 5,000 people in this area, the way it's laid out. And that's going to take water, toilets, dishwater, everything else. The runoff to the Mulmore River is considered during regular times. But when you have the storms that we've been having lately, that puts them in a different area, and more runoff is going to occur from this project. The wetlands, I don't know how that got by everybody, but I know the wetlands here harbor a great deal of endangered wildlife. Now, coming down from the mountain on the other side of 202, basically directly across is a den of eastern timberback rattlers. Now, these cross, they usually go up to a quarter of a mile, and they cross onto the Patrick Farm area. I've noticed the rattlers all in there. So, that is an endangered species, and you're limiting its habitat. Also, the orange salamander, being untouched, it may appear in this water system. But when you take then all of this building you're going to be doing, that animal, which is almost extinct right now, will not be seen. There are also the Indiana bats. Now, the Indiana bats are also an endangered species, and they come here in the late spring, early summer. They migrate here from Indiana, and they mate, and then in a band, they blacken the sky and go back to Indiana. You're taking away their habitat. One full-grown tree that you're taking out of here provides enough oxygen for a family of 4 for a day. One full-grown oak will eliminate 7 tons of water through its leaves a day. So that is not even being considered in this crazy proposal. Transportation, 306 is no transportation for the number of people you're going to put in there. And nobody's ever going to approve that unless they widen it another 2 lanes. The roads are insufficient. And next thing I want to talk about is taxes. Who's going to pay for this? Because most of you people don't pay taxes. We do. The taxpayers of Ramapo.
Taxes are not an issue for the planning board tonight. Whether this project will pay full taxes or exempt is not a proper factor for this board to consider with respect to approving or not approving this.
Well, Ms. Diodi should know about it. They're going to be
You're
paying
not,
taxes.
with all due respect, Tony, you're not speaking to the audience, you're speaking to the decision.
No, I'm speaking to everybody.
With all due respect, your presentation should be addressed to the planning board, not to the audience.
Well, I can speak to everybody, and I don't care what you say. Just get rid of me then. Schools. East Ramapo School is already a hideous mess. And that's going to make it even worse. There are many more things I could say, but I know what the outcome of this is going to be. I can take a look around and see what the outcome is going to be. Because Ramapo, the town of Ramapo, I have no ill use for your planning board or your leadership here. Because they're pandering to one group of people. So, take it for what you will. That's my comments.
personal attacks on any individuals, on any board, or on any group of individuals. That is not part of this application, has absolutely nothing to do with it, and there's absolutely no need for it, and I will cut off anybody that comes that route. Thank you for your cooperation. Leslie Brun.
So it's Leslie Brun on 926 Haverstraw Road.
Thank you.
Good evening. I reside less than 3/4 of a mile to the historic Packard Farm property. The Mawa River runs through our property and many others in the valley. The river is not only beautiful, but also home to many forms of wildlife and vegetation, and provides many counties with clean drinking water. Sorry for this. However, this idyllic setting, the main source of our drinking water, is in danger from the overdevelopment which is currently proposed. The Mawa Aquifer is a federally designated source of water. It provides a clean source of water for not only Rockland County, but Bergen and Passaic as well. And note the word I use is clean. Aquifers are forests and natural filters that trap sediment and other particles, such as bacteria, and provides a natural purification of the groundwater flowing through them. Our local aquifer is clearly in danger should the high-density Packard Farm development be approved. The overdevelopment of the property will have a devastating effect on the aquifer and the water table. There is no doubt that if the property is denuded of its vegetation, mature forest lands, or the construction, there will not be any protection from any runoff or massive soil erosion. And this is no small landmass that's being proposed. Do you realize that the destruction of this beautiful property equals an area over 1.5 times Palisades Hall, or, I like to put it in football terms, 160 adjacent football fields. When dwellings are constructed, there must be roads built along with septic tanks, roofs, storm drains, and sidewalks, which will provide a conduit for the watershed at an alarming rate. Additionally, pavement and rooftops will act as streams and channel water into drains that dump directly into the nearest body of water, the aquifer, which is our permanent drinking water. With that runoff, contaminants and pollutants will be driven into the aquifer, given no natural vegetation to protect it, and the steep angle of the property down to the aquifer. Chemicals and debris would be washed into these water bodies in addition to excessive sediment. And this sediment can reduce the amount of sunlight reaching aquatic plants, clog fish gills, smother habitat, and spawning areas, just to mention a few. Since I physically live along this river, I've personally seen evidence on how the water table has risen and fallen very dramatically. During our drought year, when the water was exceptionally low, during the drought years, the water was exceptionally low. Imagine 5,000 plus extra inhabitants putting an unbelievable strain on this already stressed clean water source. During excessive wet years, such as with Hurricane Irene, the rush of water was outrageous and unstoppable and destructive. Our small neighborhood lost their 100-year-old carriage bridge, which was our only avenue to reach our homes. But the amount of debris rushing through our property was frightening, and we reached over 50 feet into our front yard, and we were in great danger of having our homes compromised. Importantly, it was imperative that we tested our water to make sure it was safe to drink. And this is with Packard Farm as a natural woodland environment. I can't imagine what it would mean with the debris from the additional building, traffic, and inhabitants. We've been told by meteorologists and news reporters that the severity of the 100-year-old Hurricane Irene would never be repeated, but it did so with Hurricane Sandy. And what does that mean if the overdevelopment happens in our aquifer, homes, and properties, and clean drinking water is destroyed? As we've learned, there's no guarantee when it comes to Mother Nature, but there is something that can be done to protect ourselves from the devastation that could occur with the overdevelopment of this property. Please, I urge you to vote against the high-density project that would destroy the aquifer with our water. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy Solomon.
that's for us, you need to give it on this side of the table. Thank you.
I would rather view the snow.
Give us your name and address, please.
Sandra Solomon on 28 Scenic Drive, Suffolk 10901.
Right.
I would rather view the snow through a window in my house. Leaving my house will come to this meeting with a lot of effort. I hope you will reciprocate by hearing and considering what is said. The threat of global warming has been voiced without being heard until Hurricane Sam. It is now declared a reality. It's a reality to the many people whose lives were directly affected. It has brought devastating changes. Going back in history, the Depression years, farmers and ranchers of the Great Plains, anxious to utilize their land fully, went against nature by over-farming and over-grazing, destroying the grasslands. With these poor soil conservation practices, the land began to blow away. Clouds of dust reached as far east as New York City. Famine, asthma, and death are associated with this time in history called the Dust Bowl. In a less global sense, in my world, Rockland County, we are experiencing a possible disaster with the destruction of our environment. In the 11 years that I have lived here, I've witnessed efforts by many to protect the environment. The downzoning of the 200 acres comprising the Patrick Farm would be the beginning of environmental problems involving our infrastructure, water, sewage, traffic, and loss of wildlife habitat. This land has been zoned to 2 acres, then went to 1 acre. It is now zoned as follows. 497 homes, of those 87 single-family, 410 multi-family units consisting of 314 townhouses, 72 condominiums, 24 rental apartments. Those people who are aware and concerned with protecting our environment have continually tried to communicate these concerns but have not been heard. This is the time to be aware of the devastation that will come and plan responsibly. Listen to what history has taught us. Listen to the scientists. Don't listen to the developers. Their promises are dictated by self-profit. The 1 acre perimeter housing, which is part of the present plan, will never exist. In due time, there will be a request for further downzoning. The 200 acre parcel will become a mini city. The overdevelopment of these 200 acres will not end here. It will be the beginning of a pattern that will bring about as much destruction as the hurricane and the Dust Bowl. Once change is made and our ecological system is adversely affected, we cannot go back. Considering the plans for Patrick Farm and making your recommendations, consider what we should leave for future generations. In 1861, Abraham Lincoln stated in his annual message to Congress, the struggle of today is not altogether for today. It is for a vast future also. The Patrick Farm is needed to sustain the provide open spaces and maintain the necessary balance of nature. Considering the global changes we are experiencing today, decisions should not be made until time is allowed for thorough investigation. The public hearing should remain open to provide time for Rosa to go through documents obtained yesterday and today. Thank you.
My name is Marlena K. Owen, I live at 104 Harbor Cove in Piermont. I formerly lived on 619 and 306. Patrick Farm is my backyard. I'm hoping that you won't make any final decisions tonight. I'm hoping you'll wait until the DEC has something something in their hands that you know that the site, that everything is, the DEC gave their application. Excuse me, I'm a little nervous. But Lennon Jackson seems to think that the DEC permits are a done deal. The developers asked for a permit to rebuild a dam that they destroyed in 2001. They're asking for a permit to do stream disturbance. The developer already dug trenches to dry up Patrick Farm. and to do away with the streams and the wetlands. Think about this very carefully because you're destroying this area. And it's not just those 200 acres, it's all of Ramapo. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paoli. Mr. Shapiro.
Paper. Well, first of all, we understand.
Your name and address, please.
Sorry, my name is Susan Shapiro. I'm an attorney representing my parents, Dr. Sonia and Milton Shapiro, who live on 34 Scenic Drive. My office is at 21 Carling Drive, Spring Valley. As you well know, we've been in front of you multiple times on this project. We're in litigation. There are at least 12 pending lawsuits currently on this project. I believe part of the record will be submitted. I'm not going to go over what we're going to be submitting, but I'm going to be submitting our petition on the final subdivision approval that you already gave, and a memorandum.
That's your Article 78.
The Article 78, and the memorandum of law and our reply brief.
That's on the final approval.
On the final subdivision approval. I'm not going to go through that, but today, because there are many.
I read it at least once.
Just briefly, the issues that I'm not going to go into depth on that need to be looked at again since you're reviewing this is that at the time that the last time you approved it, one of the main issues that you only got, like you're getting many of these papers for the first time today, that what you received that day that you didn't have a chance to really understand and review is what Columbia Gas presented to you. And just to clarify it, Judge Walsh in his decision acknowledged that he understood, the planning board understood that the liability that the planning board was taking on themselves for approving it based on the letters of Columbia Gas, which are not letters of no objection. They're letters of transfer of liability first to the applicant and ultimately to the town of Ramapo. So once again, I would recommend that you review that very carefully because it's an incredible liability that you're taking on to the town of Ramapo and to the taxpayers to have that many multifamily houses within 25 feet of that Columbia Gas pipeline. But those are in those papers. That's not what I'm here really to discuss tonight. What I'm here to discuss tonight is the architectural review and the new information that has recently been received that really requires you as a planning board to do a supplemental environmental impact statement. This information or this proof, I should say, from the Army Corps of Engineers that no jurisdictional determination has been made is a very enormous thing that you must consider because not knowing where, there's no way the applicant can say to you, we're not disturbing wetlands, any of the wetlands, because they don't know where any of the wetlands are. They have not properly mapped the wetlands. I'd like to pass this around to all the board members. I don't know if I have enough of them, but this is a mapping that was done that shows all of the wetlands on the site. And the ruling is, if an applicant chooses not to ask the Army Corps of Engineers for an approved jurisdictional determination, then the requirement is that all wetlands on the property, every single wetland on that property is considered waters of the United States and needs to be protected that way. What the applicant has done is design a project without showing all the wetlands on the site. And knowingly,
Before you go, we'll need 1 second.
oh, sorry. Okay, there's one done that you give.
Okay, great. I just want to have 1 second.
Okay. The applicant continues to try to attempt to lull you into believing them, whatever they say, whatever misrepresentations they want to make to you. And I'm very glad to hear tonight that you, Mr. Scott, requested something in writing. Not that they said, oh, it's fine, without seeing it in writing. And I hope that you will do that for many of their other assertions, because many of them are false, as we have discovered with regard, for example, with the Army Corps of Engineers. They have, in writing, on the record, in court, over and over again, to you, told you that they have a jurisdictional determination. They've mapped all the wetlands. They have not. If you will take a look at the map I just passed around, what is specifically missing is a very interesting thing. You'll notice there are some wetlands, I don't have a copy myself. There's some wetlands here that are marked in orange. Those wetlands that are marked in orange are specifically the areas that the applicant was issued cease and desist order from the Army Corps of Engineers for damaging waters of the United States. Now, how come those wetlands, in 2004, they were issued a fine and a cease and desist order, but no longer are shown on any of their maps? And in fact, they're planning to build water detention basins within them, which is against regulation, and they actually have a playground in the wetlands, and they actually have some structures in the wetlands as well as a condominium. The other thing that they have missed is if you look at the red area, which is attached to the orange area, that's considered National Wetland Inventory. That came from that map. Because they did not get an approved JD, all of these wetlands must be considered waters of the United States. It was their option not to. They were told specifically, and there's a memorandum to the record by Dr. Mallory of the Army Corps of Engineers that says, I told him if they want approval for this proposal for 497 homes, you have to come back and we're going to have to do more investigation. You're going to need a new jurisdictional approval. They said, sorry, and he said specifically to them, I think it's going to be very difficult for you to get that. You should stick with your original plan, which was for 139 single-family homes. Their claim that they haven't made a change to this project is hard to fathom how they even can say that. It's almost 5 times the amount of units. It's really hard to understand. Just common sense tells you there's something doesn't make sense there. And the fact that they don't have all the wetlands mapped should be a real concern to you. And the other issue that is a big concern with regard to the wetlands and to the finding statement that was originally upon which all this is based, because the wetlands, clearly everything is based on it. If you don't have the right amount of wetlands, you can't do your density calculations, you can't do your bulk calculations. Everything's based on what wetlands are mapped. So if they start off with a bad wetlands map, there's no way for you to actually know whether any of the sightings of these homes is proper. But the other thing that they did is they have a finding statement that is very clear and very specific about the need for recharge and this site. And it's specific in exactly how to do it. The finding statement specifies that there are going to be 4 infiltration basins and 87, I just forgot what they're called, but for the individual, 87, what are they called?
Single family homes.
No, roof leaders?
No, for the single-family homes. What infiltration filter things for the single-family homes. The reality is, because dry wells, thank you. That's the word. they have gone back, and their plan doesn't have those anymore. In fact, the 87 dry wells are saying, you know what? It requires testing from the drainage agency, but we want to test it later. We want you guys now to approve our 87 homes, but we don't know whether we can actually put in dry wells because the water level on this property is so high, there might not be enough separation. And we no longer have the infiltration basins because the water level on this property is so high, we have detention ponds that do not serve the same purpose. Now, the finding statement is so clear and specific about this, it's mentioned twice in the finding statement. Because they're not doing it that way, now, the plans in front of you are very different. You need to go and do a new finding statement. You need to do a supplemental seeker because of this dramatic change. Some of the issues specific to, some things that he said tonight that I want to clarify before I get into the issues specific to the ARB, is he specifically said that the DEC made a determination that there were no additional wetlands. That is false. The application that was made, the petition to the DEC, was 2-pronged. One was regarding wetlands of unique local importance, which would mean wetlands that weren't connected to one another. That was denied. There was another part of the petition regarding contiguous wetlands meaning that there are over 15 acres of wetlands that are contiguous, which would mean that would be actually a DEC wetland with higher levels of protection than even an Army Corps of Engineers wetland. That has not been ruled upon as of yet. That could change this project dramatically because that would mean a 100-foot buffer around all those areas. So once again, Mr. Rocks has presented you with false information. He also, well, there are many other issues I'm not going to get into, but what I wanted to go into here is to discuss with you a few very important items. One is Judge Walsh in his decision and why we're back here. Besides the ARB stated very clearly, and I'll read you the quote, that the planning board should have made control of common areas by homeowners association a condition of final approval. Upon remittal, the planning board shall do so. As of today, there is not a draft of that agreement for the maintenance of the stormwater basins by the homeowners association. There's not a draft of the homeowners association. We have no idea of the governance, how it's going to work. None of that is before you today. You cannot approve this. You cannot approve the MRA district without that. That's a court order, just to let you know that. Additionally, there's no guarantee that this development will be able to provide for the diverse community, which, once again, the finding statement talks about endlessly. The whole reason for this is that the diversity of housing we need so desperately in this area. Well, then the planning board here tonight must require that there's a non-discrimination clause in whatever standard is going to be provided, that there's a guarantee of public marketing. There's a historical basis for this, based on the applicant's prior history of similar housing in the town of Ramapo. There has been a historic failure to advertise to the general English-speaking public via newspaper, internet, signage, any other type of communication. It doesn't exist. There is no way to find out when these houses are for sale or for rent unless you're inside a specific community. That is not for diversity. That is not allowed because this is the reason this was approved, the MRA. In addition, historically, the racial population of the prior housing units developed by the applicant are more than 90, some are close to 99% or 100% white only. This is a violation of the Fair Housing Act and cannot be tolerated in our community. Now going to the ARB. The issues with the ARB was, one of the issues was already raised already. The height of the buildings are more than 30 feet. Some of them are up to 42.5 feet, 42 feet. However, the distance between most of the buildings is 30 feet and some are even less than 30 feet. That's a violation of fire code and it's also a violation of the town code. You cannot approve that without them going before the zoning board of appeals. And they haven't done that, they haven't made an application. In fact, they state in multiple times that there is no need for any variances on this site. This is clearly a need for a variance if this is going to be allowed to go forward in this dangerous manner. The other thing that is very important that affects everything on this site is that now we know, because we've seen the plans, that the multifamily houses have been identified as being 4-bedroom units. However, the definition of the bedroom in the town of Ramapo is any house with space in excess of 100 square feet other than a living room, dining room, bathroom, hallway, or kitchen. Well, take a look at the plans. Well, first of all, and under the New York State Building Code, a bedroom of 100 square feet can be occupied by 2 people. So, if you take a look at these plans, the townhouses, which are supposedly 4-bedroom, are actually 8-bedroom and have the potential to be 8-bedroom houses. They have 4 rooms that are all more than 100 square feet with closets, some with bathrooms. So you must consider that the population, taking 314 townhouses, I didn't even look at the other units, but I was just looking at the townhouses, this number may be higher. Just taking that number, add 8 more people, potential people to this project, you're talking about adding another 2,492 people. The only number that has been proposed so far as the amount of population is under 2,000. This is more than double what they've already proposed. Now, the impacts of this are enormous. they're enormous on water usage, they impact parking, traffic, sewage, school, community character, fire protection, police services, and all other public services. This planning board, because we had an ARB, because it was ordered by the court to have an ARB, that was one of the reasons for this planning board to look at this and say, you know what? If you're going to do 8-bedroom units, if you're going to build houses with the potential for 8-bedroom units, we have to consider the difference in population and what that impact actually means. To not do that, you can't really approve this project. So, going back,
You're
there are many,
approaching your 5 minutes.
I know, there are many issues here. And
I would appreciate it if you could start the one down, please.
I am, I'm going to be submitting that all to you. But you look at, many of these issues have to be looked at in depth. United Water tells you that this is a very important site. It's a sensitive, environmentally sensitive site that of this, such a large development could dramatically impact the aquifer. The other thing that the planning board needs to do on site plan approval, though there's been a claim once again by the applicant who, I really have to say, you guys have to be careful. If you trust him on his word, and his word is proven wrong, you need things in writing, as Mr. Scott said. And this has happened over and over and over again. He says, I have it, we're going to get it. You say, okay, never get it. This no jurisdictional wetlands thing is enormous. Once again, I want to explain to you how big that is. And that you really have to, if you go ahead and approve it, it's your responsibility. The fact is that if they supply you with false information, it's a Class C felony under New York State law. But you as a planning board are now on notice, and you are also liable for accepting false information without question, when you can put on notice that it's false. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Jeremy Cozen, 81 Main Street, Suite 415, White Plains, New York.
What is his last name? Cozen?
Cozen, K-O-Z.
Sorry, I apologize.
Jeremy, lift the microphone up.
This is a matter of preliminary concern. Like the prior Ms. Shapiro, we are also submitting all of the litigation documents from the prior.
You can give me an extension of time to file the record.
Would you like them or?
No. Oh, here. These are, just so the board is aware, this is an Article 78 petition with respect, the first claim of Bowden, and then you have your memorandum of law, then the affirmation of Daniel Richmond, the notice of verified petition, verified amended petition, and a verified petition. And another memorandum, a reply memorandum of law, and reply affirmation.
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Cozen, and I'm an attorney with the law firm of Zarin and Steinmetz, representing Ramapo Organized for Sustainability and Safe Aquifer, also known as ROSA. We appreciate the board taking its time this evening to have a public hearing on this highly significant and controversial application. Since the last time this application has been before your board, a substantial amount of new information has been submitted by the applicant, much of which has either only been recently revealed to the public or which the public still has not seen. In light of this new information, and in avoiding hastily made decisions, it is imperative for both your board and the public's sake to scrupulously review this application, including, but not limited to, the information addressed at this morning's CDRC meeting and a letter from the applicant's Special Environmental Counsel, which I believe has been referred to as the Chertoff letter. The planning board must not, in an unseemly rush to approve this project, fail to undertake critical review responsibilities to the detriment of project residents, emergency responders, and the surrounding community. Moreover, the public should have a reasonable opportunity to review and comment upon this new information. Once again, there is absolutely no reason to rush to judgment, especially whereas, like the present, the public has not even had a full day to review and assess information and documents submitted in conjunction with this application. With respect to the application itself, it is apparent that this application is flawed for a variety of reasons, many related to aquifer protection, wetlands, stormwater, and SECRA, which is the State Environmental Quality Review Act. As a result of these flaws, the Patrick Farms development has been the subject of approximately 10 current lawsuits, currently in various New York State courts. This highly litigious project, once again, necessitates that your board carefully review a full record before it determines whether or not to grant site plan approval and ensure that the public has time to read, analyze, and comment. Our firm, for example, represented various petitioners in their challenge to the board's original grant of site plan and final plat approval. While the lower court remitted this matter, which has been referred to as Judge Walsh's decision and order, to your board, and dismissed some of our other claims, we continue to believe in the viability of the claims that Judge Walsh dismissed, and our clients intend to appeal those that were dismissed. Respectfully, we submit that your board would be well served to reconsider the issues raised during prior hearings and in our litigation papers, which we have submitted to your board just prior to this presentation. For example, one of these issues concerns aquifer protection. Significant portions of the site are located in the defined aquifer and wellfield protection zone. The project includes items that we believe constitute regulated activities under the aquifer protection law. These include, for example, the storage of internal combustion vehicles, and that's a defined term by the town code. While we recognize that the lower court did not agree that the extensive parking lots for the project did not qualify under this provision, notably, the town code defines a parking area to be a lot or part thereof used for the storage or parking of motor vehicles with or without the payment of rent or charges in money and or other consideration. And that, once again, is a quote from the town code. We submit that it is clear that your board needs to consider, as the town code mandates, whether the project's extensive parking lots will not degrade the quality of groundwater through the introduction of stormwater runoff, petroleum products, and other toxic substances, increase the long-term risk of groundwater contamination through the siting, establishment, or expansion of uses which store, transport, or utilize significant quantities of material which is potentially harmful to groundwater quality, or increase the long-term risk of groundwater contamination of relatively small quantities of material which over a period of time may accumulate in groundwater. The site, the Patrick Farms development, is within the United States Environmental Protection Agency designated Ramapo sole source aquifer and is adjacent to a Rockland County groundwater protection zone for two of United Water's groundwater supply field wells. Components of this project, such as the parking lots, and in our litigation papers we also refer to aspects of the basements and the townhomes, could compromise the integrity of the aquifer underlying the site, and the planning board must not fail to make the required referrals or conduct the analysis required by the town's own aquifer law. Additionally, supplemental environmental review under SECRA is needed to assess these new potential significant adverse impacts, whether it be on the aquifer or, as I'm about to explain, with regards to wetlands. Again, it is now more clear than ever that the Army Corps of Engineers never signed off on a wetland delineation for this project. A formal delineation of Army Corps of Engineer Army Corps of Engineer wetlands would be the product of a jurisdictional determination, also known as a JD. The January 5th letter, which is being cited by the applicant and in both court papers and in front of this board, is not the typical letter the Army Corps of Engineers would issue in connection with a project of this scope or magnitude. I have the letter here, it's in the record. It's a one-page with maybe 2 lines on the second page document that specifically only refers to the proposed work being done in conjunction with the arch culverts. Now, this newly submitted letter from the Special Environmental...
You have a copy of that?
The copy is amended, I believe, to the Chertok letter, and as well as there are multiple instances of it in the record. I believe it's attached to numerous affidavits, both from...
I would assume it would be.
It's the January, for the record, it's the January 5th, 2011 letter from the Army Corps of Engineers, Stacy M. Jensen, to Patrick Farms.
I remember the word.
It's referred to at the bottom of page 2 of the third top letter.
Yes, clean, submit it.
Chairman.
Jeremy, you can submit it.
Okay, I'll submit the letter as well. Just for posterity. The newly submitted letter, which is referred to in the Special Environmental Counsel's letter, that mind you was only made, that letter by Special Environmental Counsel to the applicant, which was only made available today, relies on this January 5th, 2011 letter. However, Kim Copenhaver, a wetlands consultant who submitted affidavits in various of the aforementioned litigations, and formerly worked for the Army Corps of Engineers, showed that this letter is simply not the type of letter that Army Corps of Engineers issues when it delineates wetlands under its jurisdiction. The letter, on its face, only indicates that the Army Corps of Engineers reviewed certain arch culvert plans. As shown in Copenhaver's affidavit, as well as other affidavits submitted in conjunction with the litigation, various litigations by Andrew Willingham, a wetlands consultant, wetlands and stormwater consultant. These wetlands, which have not been properly delineated, result in more wetlands on the site being than the applicant has previously stated. Supplemental environmental review under SECRA is required for significant adverse environmental impacts that were not addressed or inadequately addressed in the EIS, the Environmental Impact Statement, that arise from newly discovered information or changes in circumstances related to the project. That's from the statute itself. As an involved agency, the Planning Board, charged with drafting its own SECRA findings, your board must revisit the environmental review process and take a hard look at this. And take a look at this issue as well as a multitude of other issues associated with this project. One of these issues, which is actually also mandated by the town code, is the stormwater prevention plan, the SWIFT, that Mr. Rock referred to and has been referred to in the applicant's plans on numerous occasions. This SWIFT, which Mr. Rock says complies with the DEC's 2008 design manual, the DEC has blessed this design manual as being the applicable design manual here. However, the town code, the town of Brownfield Code, on its face, states that a SWIFT in the town of Brownfield must comply with the most current version of the DEC stormwater design manual. That goes further than what the DEC may have told the applicant and may require in other instances. This town code goes further, and it specifically requires the usage of a stormwater management design manual that's the most current version. It is our belief, and you can check this, and I'm sure the applicant can attest to this, that there is a 2010 DEC stormwater management design. That the usage of the 2008 stormwater design manual is certainly not more current than 2010. Lastly, there are issues with respect to the scope of this public hearing.
To what, I'm sorry?
To the scope of this public hearing. In Judge Walsh's decision and order, he annulled the subdivision approval, the final subdivision approval, the final site plan approval for the condos, the condominiums, and the final site plan approval for the volunteer housing. Presently, the applicant has only submitted 2 plans to your board for review and to the CDRC, the condominiums and the volunteer housing. They have not submitted for your review in this new public hearing and the new CDRC procedures that the subdivision plans. And it's upon information and belief that the applicant's consultant crossed out all references to the subdivision because the applicant believes that Judge Walsh's decision and order only annulled the site plan approval for the condos and the volunteer housing. This strained interpretation of Judge Walsh's decision and order is simply incorrect and conflicts with Judge Walsh's explicit language, which can be found on page 5 of his decision and order, where the judge states, and I quote, that the court annuls the planning board's decisions and remits this matter for referral to the CDRC. He did not distinguish between subdivision and condos and volunteer housing. He said decisions, implying plural and not making a distinction as to which ones. In our opinion, that's all three, and we see no reason why the omission of the subdivision plans has taken place, and we respectfully request that the public hearing remain open so that the applicant can respond to those criticism, to that concern, and also submit plans in front of the CDRC and the board regarding the subdivision approval. Respectfully, this public hearing should be renoticed and expanded to include the wide array of environmental and planning issues associated with the subdivision of the property. These issues include, but are not limited to, clear cutting the whole property, grading issues, and drainage issues. Now, those were not addressed because they were in the subdivision plans and not the site plans for the condos and the volunteer housing. In sum, at a minimum, your board should keep the public hearing open so that members of the public can review the newly submitted documents from even today, and your board should take a hard look at the wide array of environmental and planning flaws contained in the current application and engage in further supplemental environmental review. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and we look forward to working with you in the continuing review of this project. Thank you.
You want a break? Mr. Chairman, can we have a short break for the stenographer, please? We got 5 minutes. I'm starting right now. Let the record show that stuff is coming out of me.
Mr. Coleman, please, let's go.
Scott Holman, 6 Cottage Lane, Suffolk, New York. Before I get started, and I had a whole prepared statement, but I came up with a couple of questions listening to Mr. Rock that I just wanted to pose. The first one is, I don't remember, and maybe you can answer, are the condos walk-ups, or do they have elevators in them, and do they comply with the disability tax? That's the first question. The second question is, one of the letters that I believe was submitted to the board from one of the agencies said that they didn't want to see a retaining wall over 4 feet tall. They kind of said tough for making it 12 feet. If you guys would think back to when I had the visual display of a 16-foot wall that went almost to your ceiling, think about a 12-foot wall, and think about one of your children or grandchildren falling off that wall. They said 4 feet for a reason. You can survive a 4-foot fall and get a little bit hurt. You're not going to survive a 12-foot fall and get a little bit hurt. You're going to die. Now, I'd like to start. If you would bear with me 1 second, I have a bunch of stuff that I want to give to you guys so you can follow along. Alan, you want a copy of this?
Yes, please, for the record, Scott.
Once again, good evening, and thank you for hearing all of our concerns on this project. My name is Scott Coleman, again, 6 Cottage Lane, Suffolk, New York. I live across the street from the Patrick Farm project. And yes, I'm the one that Scott Goldman is running for supervisor this year.
Yeah.
I am not opposed to the developer building his project, but I am opposed to the developer building this project the way it is. It is not smart building, nor is it environmentally sound. There are way too many buildings, and this project is just too large to be acceptable. If you look at this project, you will see that they have crammed so much on this property that it will be a city within itself, and will not go in harmony with the surrounding neighborhoods. I believe this town always had something when you built, you had to build to conform to the neighborhoods. This project is not the way it is. We have to preserve the environment, not destroy it. It is not our fault that this project is the way it is. The way it is. Might just be the only way the developer might make some money. But sorry, every business and every person makes a mistake, and sometimes they just lose money. But they should not. But that problem should not be the problem of the residents of us in the area of our town. What is the problem? This town and this board, along with the residents, is to make sure that projects are not burdensome on everyone else who lives here or will live here in years to come. Once you destroy an area by overbuilding, it never comes back. How in good conscience can anyone allow buildings so close to a high-pressure gas pipeline? Even after the information which I provided, you probably get it, but I don't know. But if you remember, I provided, I believe it was either 80 or 90 feet on gas line. What happens on this road? When something happens to this gas line, explosion or rupture, all of the damage, destruction, environmental issues, and death involved with this accident like this would be on your heads. And just real quickly, they're building very close to a gas line. A little while back, and I don't remember exactly when, I remember sitting in a workshop session, and an applicant had come in, and he'd asked for a variance to allow him to put his driveway in the spot where he wasn't supposed to be. He dealt with, if I remember correctly, within the right of way on this road. If he did that by mistake, think about digging down a high-pressure gas line, what you're going to have. It happens. It's an accident, but it happens. I have handed out to each of you a booklet entitled Highway Design Manual. This is published by the New York State Department of Transportation as to the requirements on road design, and these designs are the bare minimum specifications allowed by the state. The reason why I passed out this booklet is to point out the designs made by Leonard Jackson for the petitioners of this project were not designed with safety in mind. In regards to not only the roads, but also the height of retaining walls, which started out at 16 feet. Retaining walls should not be as tall as they are, or as they want. The retention ponds. How will and who will be responsible for the maintenance of this? And if it's going to be town, why should we be burdened with this task unless we are getting paid to do it on at least a yearly basis and getting paid a whole lot of money to do it for them? By any means, it should not be the homeowner's responsibility. How about the ways of preventing flooding to the neighbors? Since the last couple of storms, my backyard is always flooded, and I live across the street, and so are my neighbors. I have pictures, which if you'd like, I could submit to you, of water rushing across Patrick Farm and across 202, where I live, after one of the rainstorms. How can they assure us that we won't be flooded by this project? Just look at the recent storms that have hit this area and the flooding it has caused. These storms are only getting worse, they're not getting better. We've had 200-year storms in 2 years. Now let's get back to the roads and the system. Now, if I am correct, the roads leading into the project are only 24 feet wide, and the interior roads are only 20. And I did shut this off, I must have leaned on it. Excuse me.
You lost a minute of your 5 minutes with that.
Tell Richard. If I am correct, not only are they smaller than the standards of the road in the town, goes way against the New York State DOT requirements. Please look at the following pages and the highlights. Page 2-63, 2-70, 2-77, 2-23, 2-31, 2-36, and 2-38. And all will agree that the engineer of this project has not done anything to secure this property and its environment, but just to jam a poorly designed project on all of us. I believe that all he did was to put as much stuff in a small area as to make his client a profit without concern for the environment, the land, or anyone involved except his client. And oh yes, the mighty dollar. You should look upon the oath that the engineers have to take and work by, and you will see what's been going on. He has provided a dog and pony show, hoping to convince all that's involved. Oh, and also, I'm going to address it to you. Meeting it two back, Mr. Jackson made a statement, which I took a great deal of offense to. He said that we were all lay people, and we didn't understand what he was doing. We are not lay people. We are educated, intelligent business people, teachers, lawyers, doctors, engineers, environmentalists, scientists, planners, geologists, etc. And I think at the very least, that man owes us all an apology for what he said, because we are not beneath him. If anything, we are equal to him, and that's how it should always be. I can guarantee all of you sitting at this board, as well as other boards, that when I am elected supervisor, we will never have to worry about undue pressure, bullying, or fear of not having a
Mr.
job.
Holman, let's keep politics out of this, please.
Well, that takes some fun.
Mr. Holman, I will not stand comments like that outside. Proceed.
In that case, please do not give final subdivision approval to this project as it stands. It must be fixed. Send it back to make it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. We'll take a 5-minute break so that
and most important, you have the opportunity to protect the people that could be living here on top of this time bomb. Right? Because these are the people that are going to really feel the burn, that are going to have to drink the dirty water that gets contaminated. These are the people that are going to suffer if, God forbid, there is a gas line rupture. These are the people that are going to suffer because of violations of the fire code. Right? So you have a responsibility to us and to them, and quite honestly, I think the applicant is irresponsible and is putting the people of this county and the people living here in harm's way. You have the opportunity to be a hero to these people by turning down this application in its present form. Excuse me, I'd like to cede the rest of my time to James.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stewart. And for the brevity, being brief. Thank you. James Quinn.
James Quinn, 30 Westgate Road, Suffolk, New York. I'm a professional engineer licensed in the state of New York for 23 years, specializing in roadway, site civil, and traffic engineering, and I've been a resident in town of Ramapo for 23 years. You all know what the development's about. I'm very happy that we finally had an opportunity to see plans of what the building's going to look like. I've been involved in this project for a couple of years, and I've seen the site plans and then words in the EIS, so it's great to finally see architectural drawings that were created a couple of years ago. We had finally shown them to us. And I know that the architect for the developer submitted 2 sets of documents to you back in December of 2012. He submitted these preliminary plans for 3 different kinds of residential types, type 3, 7, and 8, I'll go over the specific ones, but the one I really want to focus on, the one Susan brought up, is type 3, the 314 townhomes. If I could borrow this for a second, just so everyone understands. The townhome is right here. It's just the
Could you
one.
show it to the board, please, and speak to the mic?
It's just the one. This is one townhome right here, 3 floors, okay? There's 314 of these townhomes that are being proposed in the development site. 3 stories tall, and as per the letter that was received by the architect that he submitted to you, saying that they're 4-bedroom apartments, 4-bedroom townhomes, okay? I need a copy of this letter, because I'm going to compare the letter, show you the comparison between the letter and the plans. So I don't know if when you guys get things submitted to you, if you just read the letter and follow what he says in the letter, or if you actually look at the plans and what they say on the plans. But according to the letter,
Take the mic with you. Take the mic. Mr. Quinn, can you take the mic with you?
Sure.
And can you state who the letter's from and the date?
sure, the letter's from Mike Garfinkel, architect, dated November 28th, received by the town of Round on December 3rd.
What year?
2012. And it specifically talks about the 314 townhouses. And that these townhouses on the first floor, and the first floor is right here. It shows that it has a family room, a guest room, and a computer room on the first floor. Okay? On the second floor, over here, it has a kitchen dinette, a dining room, a living room, a playroom, and a half bathroom. On the third floor, has 4 bedrooms, 2 full baths, and a laundry room. Okay? And each floor is approximately 1,200 square feet. So I'm paraphrasing basically what this letter says. If you look at the plans, it's not what the plans have. On the first floor, the plans have, let me just bear with me a second. The first floor also has a half bathroom, okay, which isn't mentioned. They mention the bathrooms on the third floor, but they don't mention the half bathroom on the first floor. And the half bathroom is right next to what they're calling as a guest room. Okay, so to me, a guest room is a person who's going to be living there, or going to be sleeping there. On the second floor, they conveniently leave out a room called the home office. Now, there's a home office on the second floor, and there's a computer room on the first floor. I don't really know the difference. I don't know if you guys know the difference between a home office and a computer room are. To me, they sound like they're the same room. So there's 2 rooms that theoretically could be residential rooms when this development is built out. But the most important thing that he completely leaves out of this letter is the basement. What he's calling a basement, which is approximately, actually I just covered it, sorry. It's over here. It's approximately between 1,000 and 1,200 square feet, and it's not even called off in the letter. So if you read the letter, you may even get the impression that there isn't even a basement in these buildings unless you look at the drawings. On the drawings, it clearly says that there's a basement. So, something that's being called off to be a 4-story townhome could theoretically, very easily, become, as Susan had said, a 6, 7, or 8-bedroom townhome. Very easily. Okay? So I'm happy I got an opportunity to see the plans. But what I want to do then is I want to compare this. Now that we've seen this, compare this to what's stated in the EIS concerning traffic. And I went over this before with you, so I'll try to make this as brief as possible. When they do their traffic analysis, they take existing volumes, they go out and do traffic counts, and they project into a future year. It's a no-build condition. Then they take that and layer on top of that the other developments that are going to be built in this area. And they call it the future no-build condition, which is fine. That's acceptable practice in all, for all EISs, for all traffic studies done with EISs. What they then follow, and this is the important part of this, okay? They then follow this, okay? It's a trip generation manual created by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. All engineers follow this, okay? This document has historical data that was obtained from thousands and thousands of studies that traffic engineers did from the 70s up until now of different kinds of land uses. Land uses like commercial, industrial, residential, movie theaters, drive-in banks, you name it, they've got all different kinds of documents in here. What the EIS did, or the people who prepared the traffic study of the EIS, they used two codes from this book. They used code number 210, which is for single-family detached houses. No problem. They used code number 230 for residential condominium/townhomes. Okay? And then they used the trips that are generated by studies that we've done over the last 30 years for residential condominium townhomes. Okay? So, let me ask you something. What is your opinion, and what do you think? What is a condominium? I'll rephrase that. What is a condominium? Condominiums were started in the 70s. They were started in Florida. They were one-bedroom, sometimes two-bedroom houses, apartments that parents moved to. Okay? The trips that are generated by a one- or two-bedroom condominium in Florida are extremely low. The amount of trips that are generated back and forth. They use that category, condominiums, for these townhomes. And for townhomes that have at least 4 bedrooms and could have easily 6 or 8, they use the flow charts, the graphs from townhomes/condominiums. So, in my opinion, and anyone else, traffic engineer who reviews this stuff, is that they significantly underestimated the amount of trips that are going to happen from the development of this project. Significantly underestimated it. There's ways that you could correct that, okay? You could make them analyze these townhomes, 4-bedroom and up townhomes, as single-family homes. Single-family homes are typically 3 and 4 bedrooms. So the data that you'll find in this book for a single-family home is certainly more in line with what's going to come up than a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom condo that they use. Okay? If you use the ones for single-family homes, the numbers are well over 2 times the amount, which means all the traffic intersections in the area are going to fail. They're not going to pass, as they're shown in the EIS, they're going to fail. And then that's what happens if you use it with 4 bedrooms. Another way of doing this is by going and doing actual traffic counts at other places in the town that have the same kind of land use and the same kind of layout as this. And there's a lot of them that have been built in the last 10 years. And do traffic counts there, and use the volumes that come from that and see what that creates. I think if either one of these methods are done, you're going to clearly see that all the intersections in this are going to fail. Okay, so I'll just sum it up with my last paragraph. Give me 1 second. As the planning board for our town, it is your obligation to require the developer to provide the proper analysis for this project so that you and us can clearly understand the impact that this development will have on the streets of our towns. They've currently grossly underestimated the traffic additions for this project. Thank you.
Sorry. Hold on 1 second. Okay.
This one. Thank
Okay,
you.
before I submit something for you, you did get it?
We
Okay.
got that. Give it back to you. We have it in the record.
What is it?
Debbie.
Part of the CDR, she was the last add-on. Yeah, we got it.
I don't want to like go things, I'm just going to ask for your indulgence. Okay. I'm going to...
Give us your name and address, please.
Sorry. It's Deborah Munitz, I'm at 5 Rose Hill Road, Southern New York, Long Island. And I'm going to just give you a couple things that I'm not going to bother to read, okay, but I want to make sure that they're in there because they were new. One was the Copeland Environmental letter, which I believe I forwarded to you, but I did not forward the CD-ROM that had any files.
So is that the letter, excuse me, That was the letter that was in your, attached to your email?
That was one of them.
The Copeland thing,
That was one
it
of
didn't
them.
have the.
But it didn't have the
Okay,
exhibits.
so
I want to give you the exhibits, and I
Right.
tried to print a list of the files. It's a mostly complete list of files. What's important there is that there's a number of documents that I've gotten from the town under FOIL, and I wanted to make sure that you had the advantage to have all of them, because they do include some of the testimony that's been referred to by other things. So I'm going to just put this aside here.
So, just so the record, you're giving a CD, which was part of the Copeland affidavit, which was part of your email.
Right, do you need another
submission.
copy of that? Or no?
No, it
got
was
it.
part of your email, we referred to it in CRC.
Okay.
And the second, just before you go, and the second sheet was that, what is that, I'm sorry?
It was just a file list.
Oh, it's listening, I don't know how many it was. I have no idea.
Okay, so I'm going to, I have a couple of notes, but I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. First thing is the lack of time for review. I made this comment a year ago, and things never changed. I was personally there today at the CDRC meeting, and, you know, the letters are flying because everything was coming in literally yesterday and today. So even though these things were put out, you know, to various agencies back in December, there were still agencies that hadn't been heard from. So at this time, you know, there are still agencies that hadn't been heard from, and the drainage agency even sent in a letter, which you can, which is in your package. And in there, they made comments. You know, they're like, oh, hey, we already commented on these plans before, and hey, here's our 2011 comments. But oh, by the way, you know, we've actually submitted 3 additional comments in 2012, and it is my understanding that the town of Ramapo never obtained those comments, and that they are not yet available and nobody has reviewed them. So at this point, the town of Ramapo is relying solely upon the comments, you know, by Leonard Jackson, you know, giving them this overview of here are the things that we've changed, and, you know, that's it, which, you know, is fine, and I completely respect the fact that many of the very few comments that came from the town of Ramapo were like, oh, okay, well, you know, nothing's changed, everything's the same, all of our comments apply. So I think it's important that all of the comments apply, and I know that in the meeting, the town planner said, for the record, I want to make sure that my previous comments apply. I want to make sure that all of the comments apply, you know, that were in the past, and I do want to make to state that the drainage agency specifically said that they are currently reviewing, you know, these plans. And the important thing that I raised in my email that I just want to sort of illustrate here for a moment is the fact that the reason that I brought this to the attention of the board last week was that I got a scan because it wasn't just that they made updates to the plans, and, you know, from a superficial level, they looked fairly similar to me. And, you know, I kind of figured, well, no use foiling them. They're very, very expensive for the public to get these documents. I said, let me wait until the town gets them, because obviously they're not final. There wasn't any application at hand. But I did find this completely unrelated set of documents, which was this Brooker engineering drawing that I raised, and I submitted, and which was not shared around in the CDRC meeting today. So I just want to spend a moment. I'm going to be submitting one printout. I was at the hospital all day, so I only had time to make one printout, but I'm going to just, to make sure that you're following with me, I'm going to just very quickly show you this drawing so that you understand what my concern was. Okay. And I'll carry that in 1 second. Okay. So, the first thing, this is a drawing from Brooker Engineering. It's the dam improvement plan. I'm just going to point out 2 things to each person really quickly. One,
Why don't you bring it over here, then? We don't have to look at it.
well, I'm just going to point out 2 things. One is that
Can you identify for the record?
this is the drawing that I sent to the town, attached to my
This is the
email.
Brian Brooker plan superimposed
No,
on.
I'll get to that one next. Okay, so
So
the
which
first,
is this plan?
this is his actual original plan.
Which one, Brian Brooker's?
The
or-
Brian Brooker's original plan.
Okay.
And in this plan, basically what he's showing is, you can see the original pond outline, and then you can see the new pond outline. And the new pond outline is caused because what he's stating in the middle is that the height of the water is going to change. Now, I know that Dennis Ross just told you, oh, no, we told him what to do and the height of the water hasn't changed. Now, you have two different engineers. These drawings are not reflected on the Leonard Jackson drawings. And if you notice, when Brooker did his, there are no condominiums or any development on the plans that were given to Brooker Engineering. So you have two sets of engineers who are separately going off and coming up with plans. And at this point, it's appropriate for someone, and I would say at least minimally the town of Ramapo, to say, you know what? I see these two things, I would like this one reflected on that one, so that all of the various contours that are being changed, okay, all of the various fills and other things that are being done are reflected, because the outline that Brooker is showing is probably not correct. They're probably going to fill it and try and accommodate it in some way. But the point of fact is you have this drawing, and for me as a layperson, I'm looking at it saying, this is a meaningful thing. It's covering the walkways. It's covering, you know, areas that are being built on. So I submitted this. Subsequently, so you have this, I'm going to include two printouts of this drawing. And what I did is I took a Photoshop, okay, and I took the Brooker ones and I lined up, because, you know, he's got the same underlying drawings. And I basically superimposed it on top of the Leonard Jackson drawings. And, you know, I don't know if it's not printing it. I'm sorry about that. So the point is that, yeah, I hate to push it up a little. It's a very big file. Okay, so now we have a Leonard Jackson drawing that has the walkways, it has the basins, it has, you can see the road, and the condos. So maybe I can't show it to you. My printouts are awful. And I'll just talk to this for a second while it's going. But the key thing is that you, without making some modifications to these plans, you've got roads up next to the water, you've got buildings in the water, you've got drainage basins in the water, you have walkways in the water, you have bridges in the water. You have a 25-foot wide sanitary easement in the water, okay? So I raised this to the town last week, assuming that this would be fully discussed at the CDRC meeting. This is why I was thinking it was inappropriate for you, and so I copied you on it to make sure that you understood why I thought it was inappropriate for you to consider this at this time. And there's another drawing that shows the bottom part, which also is the area where, you know, there's the assist orders and stuff like that. So I'm going to give you a copy, and we'll try and get you some better printouts, but I wanted you to understand why I thought that this was very important. So in the regulations, EPA says you can't put salmon characterized in the wetlands without going through this ESA waiver process, which they went. There was a warning letter from the EPA to the sewer district, basically stating, hey, we hear that there's some wetland contentions going on, and we just want to remind you that all your grants are based upon the fact that, you know, this statement is true. In the actual ESA waiver documentation submitted by CEA, which is part of the record, there are misrepresentations. There are the same continued misrepresentations regarding this whole, you know, ACO situation. And, you know, we believe that once the drainage agency has the opportunity, because they're the only ones right now who have those sets of drawings, okay, that will cause at least some amount of change, we don't know. But we're basically stating that at this point in time, the applicant has chosen to submit to you 2011 plans saying everything is just very minor and very normal and all the rest, and that they want you to sign off on this. And meanwhile, you know for a fact that there have been a series of revisions sent to the DEC, there have been a series of revisions sent to the drainage agency. The drainage agency has actually gone through 3 different review processes. All of this is related to the SWIP, which is a condition of, you know, findings. And we think that there's ample reason to have some concern and belief that some, you know, significant changes might come about because of this. With respect to the Architectural Review Board, I personally was present, and at the meeting, I want to make the following statements. In the meeting, only 3 buildings were reviewed: the volunteer housing elevations, the community center elevations, 1 version of the 6-unit condominium buildings, okay? For the most part, the comments made were related to only the style of the outside finish of the building itself, okay? So even though it was reasonable to expect, this is what I was going into the meeting expecting to see them go over, review, and comment on, these are the things that didn't happen. Nobody reviewed any of the submitted floor plans like we did. Nobody reviewed any of the workforce housing floor plans at all, or even the elevations that were submitted. Nobody commented on the fact that there were missing plans for 5 other types of condominium buildings that are indicated on the site plan. The site plan has one of the drawings in the corner that, here's, all the various different versions of the condominiums, and there's 6 of them. Of the 6-unit buildings, they had different widths, that was not commented on. There were no elevations of the sides and the backs of the buildings to be reviewed. And a lot of these buildings actually face the streets. And as a matter of fact, all of them have to go into the space. Back of the building, front of the building, you don't even see it from 306, which is the scenic road. So there was no discussion as to which side of the building would be viewable from the main street, other than a vague comment saying that they might ask for more changes, maybe they'll throw in another tree. There was no discussion at all of the building heights or the spacing in between, which I raised and Susan went over. There was no discussion of the buildings in relationship to one another and as to whether they were too similar or too dissimilar, which is a condition of the ARB. We contend that the condominiums are significantly similar to one another. They're too closely spaced and lacking of adequate landscaping. There was no discussion of the buildings in relationship to other homes in the area and as to whether these buildings were too similar or too dissimilar. We contend that both the condominiums and the volunteer housing are vastly and utterly dissimilar to the homes in the immediate vicinity of the development, and the development of the house of this scale, this density, and this design are completely inappropriate with the existing homes in the area. There was no discussion of the building configuration or any discussion of prior comments made by Mr. Lang, who was not present, the town planner who's previously commented on plans. There was no ARB review of the subdivision homes, which are, basically subject to ARB review as well. Therefore, we have no sense of the scale of those homes and the contention that those homes and any associated landscaping could possibly screen the views of 42-foot condominiums situated so close together as just ludicrous. As per Town Code 376-103, 3-dimensional sketch or renderings illustrating significant aspects of construction and exterior design when deemed necessary or useful and requested by the CDRC and at a scale deemed appropriate. There were 2 sketches. That's it. This is all that was submitted, okay? Nothing to date has been submitted rendering the entire property, together. There's been nothing. There's no 3-scale models. There's no little drawing plans. There's nothing that there's software now that can readily do these kinds of walkthroughs so that we would all get the sense of how is this magic of screening going to happen that we're all very concerned about, and we're contending that it's not going to happen, and they're like magically saying, somehow it'll be okay. But there was nothing asked for, nothing given. There was never a discussion of any sort as to how the impact of the surrounding community, other than a discussion of how the ugly solar panels on the volunteer housing would look. And, but they can't even suggest getting rid of these ugly things that are going to be on our scenic road district because, this was the only place the applicant was doing anything environmental. Why the applicant couldn't choose to put all these solar panels on the interior of the property far away from the scenic road district, I don't know. I'm going to new points, okay? I'm skipping over points other people have made. Anyway, I'm just going to reiterate, I gave the comment that the town zoning code 376-62 states that the distance between 2 principal buildings on the same lot shall be no less than the height of the taller building. That's where Susan got her comment about the spacing. So as far as we're concerned, you can't even possibly, you have to just deny this the way it's drawn. I mean, I don't think that there's any issue about that at this time. I put in my notes something about the current plans versus submitted plans, and I talked about it a little bit. Okay, I'm going to skip over most of this. I think the key thing here is that the applicant could easily have submitted the new plans. It makes me wonder, what are they hiding? Okay, they've written, basically, the only thing that the town has before is just a statement from them saying, hey, here's all the various changes we made, and they basically crossed out all the ones related to the subdivision. The subdivision is an integral part of this. Other agencies are looking at this as a whole. We believe you should be looking at this as a whole. I think Jeremy already talked about the fact that Judge Walsh overturned subdivision. I know Avalon chooses to differ. I think the key thing is that what does come back to the town, regardless of this, is that the SWIP for the entire project is interrelated, because the whole drainage that's occurring because of this, these specific site plans are actually a lot of the infrastructure, the clearing, the cutting, and all that are related to the fact that they're trying to build, these very dense buildings. And the fact that the drainage agency has been going through all of these various reviews means that something has been changing. And I think that I want to remind you that the SWIP has not been reviewed and approved by the town for over a year and a half at this point. I know Susan already talked about the recharge basins, and I think that it's important to note that a lot of the old comments, like in the DPW, are being resubmitted. And I think that in particular, there's the November 17th CDRC notes that I think you should be paying attention to, because Ed Moran went on at length and cited so many different areas in which this recharge issue is fundamental. Ultimately, when you look at how it was left, I know that they have made sort of an attempt to address it. The town has not actually issued any kind of findings. They sort of just said, oh, okay, they submitted something, and it might work. And a lot of these things were conditional on people doing future testing at a future date. I believe that the town, the town planning board should respectfully request that they actually do some level of groundwater testing in each of the key areas along the property, so that there's a sense of confidence that their plan is going to work. And then with respect to the scenic road law, there's a very specific town code, 215-4. One of them that you just can't get around, it says that cutting of all trees in a single contiguous area exceeding 20,000 square feet shall be prohibited. And it doesn't say, oh, unless the planning board says otherwise. It just says it shall be prohibited. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to take you to look at it, that if you actually go back to the DEIS and you look at the extent of the clear cutting, the reason that the population at large is really overly concerned about that is because there are, it's plain as the nose on your face that there's extensive violation of this particular scenic road rule. One of the things that they claimed in the first place was that, for instance, in the little cutout where you have Old Route 202, they're going to be cutting down all of that, the trees in that area because they wanted to accommodate these recharge basins. They put into the record, the letters from Getchell, basically, oh, we did some groundwater testing, and these are the only places that recharge can occur. So after submitting all this testimony that these are the key important places for recharge to occur, and that's why we need to clear cut all this area, and you're going to end up seeing all this stuff that nobody wants to see, they no longer even have those basins as recharge basins. So if those basins are now no longer functioning as recharge basins, which clearly they're not, you can see that on the site plan, then certainly they can be moved, and we can leave these tree buffers that are called for in the scenic road district. So I wanted to make that point, because these are the types of pushbacks that the planning board, this is the kind of thought process that you should be going through and saying, okay, well, things do change, and they may not all be major, but some of them, when considerations and excuses were given in the first place to sort of do something that people are not happy with, and now these conditions no longer exist, that means that you can say, okay, let's go back and, take that away because, it doesn't make sense anymore.
Nancy, please finish up.
No, that's okay. I'm wrapping. I really don't want to be here anymore. So, really just kind of hoping that you guys would postpone it based upon my request last week. Okay, so, and I know that, okay, Susan, I'm just going to kick off real quick. She already covered the fact that our petition was only overturned in part with respect to the DEC. With respect to Lot 51, I know that the county keeps making a big motion, but you have to remember this whole chain link fence issue is right along this, the scenic district law, and these are the kinds of problems that we're facing. And there are other chain link fences that are in the scenic district law as well. This whole issue with the aerial apparatus roads. One of the biggest problems that's been gone, and there are many instances within all of the various back and forths between the various agencies and the applicant is, can you do this, can you do this? And singularly, if you remember this last year from when the fire department was here, all they were asking for is like another foot. You know, they just want to, increase the driveways like another foot or two. There is no room in the site plan at this time for extra roads beyond and above which what they've put in there right now. So the very idea that, oh, we'll review this later is also ludicrous, and whatever the issues that the fire department has with respect to having the right amount of access roads should absolutely be dealt with ahead of time. And, as far as all of these various changes, you got a pass from Columbia Gas, okay?
We've heard this already.
Well, I'm just saying, you got this pass, and they basically reminded you that they got this approval. But what I'm saying is that there are other changes, and we don't know what they are, and we don't know that Columbia Gas is still okay with them. I don't know. And one of the things that has also come up with respect, somebody raised the issue in prior testimony with respect to this whole rattlesnake issue. The town of Ramapo is on record for having obtained and found rattlesnakes that cross Route 202. It's within the records of the town of Ramapo. It's not even something to be disputed. So a lot of the contentions that they made with respect to DAS, with respect to that, is absolutely moot. And then
please take your seat. You're not being fair to everybody.
I'm only raising new issues. I'm sorry.
We've heard these issues.
No, you haven't. No, you haven't heard these issues because I'm being very careful to only raise new issues. Please, please. Let me just go a couple more. With respect to this maintenance issue, okay, which has been raised, one of the comments that I just want to put is that you've got the SCAM, and the other issue that I haven't heard and I haven't seen anywhere within any of the records is who's going to be in control of this spillway. So, as far as a lot of discussion has been about these drainage basins and cleaning the drainage basins and all the rest of it, I don't know who's going to be in control of these, the dam, the spillway itself. And when the water goes low, and you do need to have water spilling over the spillway the way it is now, who's going to make sure that, the fish on the other side are still kept alive. It's just something that hasn't been raised at all. I just want to, the town planning board itself, because I know people hit this to death about this whole ACO thing, one thing that nobody has said so far is that you guys have the power and authority yourselves to go and resolve this whole ACO thing by simply, making your own request for jurisdictional approval. And I would ask you, as somebody here who spent a lot of time on this, to say, you know what, let's just kill this one, go and do that. And last thing is I'm going to submit one more document, which I'll give to these guys, and I'm not even going to touch upon it or read upon it. It's rather large. It's the one that I gave to the DEC. And what I did is I had gone through all of these various DEIS and site plans, and had gone through looking at all the areas that they had things that were within, the extreme disturbance areas. The key thing to note is that when they submitted this stuff for the DEC permits, and one of the things that I brought to their attention is that they only submitted the subdivision. So you have a situation where they're basically saying, oh, everything's in the subdivision, and they're coming to you and they're trying to get them to approve the subdivision, they're trying to get you to approve the site plans. Okay, and meanwhile, nobody's pulling this together. So the one thing I want you to go and look through is that when they say that the Army Corps has signed off on arch culverts, I can assure you that they did not give them a lot of the drawings that are in here. I hope you'll pay attention to the examples that I've painstakingly gone through and identified, because you can clearly see plenty of fill right in and around all of these various streams and crossings. And I also pointed out this whole issue of the sanitary easements going through the wetlands, and I think that's it. Oh, and I think the other issue is this whole issue with the DEC in the 2010 versus 2008. I think it's really important to state that while the applicant had something that was in process that they're claiming grandfathers them back to the 2008, the one thing that the DEC is not aware of, to give them a pass on this, okay, is the fact that they went from the 2008, and they tried to do the 2010, and they went back to the so they're going back and forth and back and forth. So you know what, as far as I think you should be concerned, they've given up any claim with all of these various changes, specifically the ones related to drainage and the rest. They've given up any possibility of claiming that they should be honored into grandfathering, to being grandfathered back to 2008, when this process has been going on this long, and they're perfectly willing to flip back and forth on a moment's notice.
I'm standing here again to voice my concerns for this major project that is being developed for our beautiful Patrick Farm property. It's a terrible feeling to be knocked down time and time again when trying to defend your home and community from people who just really don't get it done.
That was an hour and a half.
How is it that the town of Ramapo did not take a hard look at the plans with respect to all the aspects of how the enormity of this housing project will affect Rockland County and parts of New Jersey? First of all, why is there a need for so much more housing? If you were to look in the real estate section of the Journal News, you will see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of houses for sale. My road, Camp Hill Road, has several houses for sale. It's been over 2 years. They're still for sale. No one's buying. But why? And I just don't understand why this is happening. So why build more housing unless this developer has another agenda? And what about the burden to the East Ramapo Central School District? The Transportation Department is already transporting 25,000 private school children. Our school district is in major trouble, and we can't do this anymore. We just can't take on anymore. In order to live in a civilized and orderly society, people must follow rules and laws that work for the betterment of all that live there. Not to change the laws to suit others. Show that you have the integrity and concern to do what is right for this community, the land, and all that is part of it, and the environment that affects us all. Thank you.
Ron Powell, 67 Babcock Lane, Sumter, New York. I'd like you to think in the future right now. Let's say the gas pipe does rupture. As is exhibited in 3 other instances within the last 10 years, when gas pipes rupture, for some reason they always seem to be in highly populated areas. The resulting calamity would be is that we'd have 30 different companies here putting water on a gasifier, trying to heat it under control. And that runoff that would be coming from there would have tremendous amounts of formaldehyde and arsenic, which would be the result of burning today's modern materials that we build houses with. Nobody ever said anything about it so far. But you have to think of a possibility. You can't just go and say, willy-nilly. It doesn't matter. That'll never happen. Well, it's happened in many different instances. And it's your responsibility to look in the future and say, okay, Columbia Gas said, don't build unless it's 600 foot away from our pipe. And you're allowing people to put roads on top of it. Now I'm going to be driving a fire truck through there. You know how much weight's on that? And how much that would help to deteriorate the piping underneath? You can't say that the vibration from 30 tons going across a pipe isn't going to affect it sooner or later. If nothing else, it will abrade the pipe so that it can rust. Nobody's put in this thing that there should be permanent electrical connections put on those pipes to determine the amount of rust that's going through. The test was done 5 years ago. I was there for the test when these tests were done. They dug a hole 4 foot deep that got down to a pipe. Now, if there was somebody that really wanted to have bad things happen, they would have to dig a hole 4 foot deep, put an explosive charge on there, and that's the end of everything. You people have to realize that you're putting people in danger by approving this project. Then they say that they're not going to change the level of the lake. Well, they sure changed the bottom of the level of the lake, and they've sure lowered the level of the lake already. So they've lowered it, there'll be no change, so they can keep it at the same level it is. Then on top of it, when they built all those trenches, the amount of silt that went into that thing turned the lake from a 5 foot lake into a 6 inch lake. Nobody's mentioned remediation as one of the things that should be done in this. Come on, where's your responsibility? This lake should be maintained. It's a gorgeous piece of property with wonderful features, and you should just let anybody trash it that they want to do. And let them make profit and put people in danger and have a lake turn into a swamp. This is not the idea of what you're here for. Then I hear that 3/4 inch water line is sufficient. Well, I don't know if these, they're going to have sprinkler systems put in. But if you want to put a sprinkler system in a house, a 3/4 inch line is not sufficient. Anybody can tell you, if you have a 3/4 inch line feeding your house and you want to put a sprinkler system in, they'll tell you, no, you must put an 1.25 line. But it's okay. The firemen don't count. We submitted all these things to you. We submitted that the roads between the houses aren't wide enough to put up an aerial truck. Tough dart, you can find out some way to put the fire out. Guess what? We're not miracle people. We can't just do anything. We have to work with what you give us. If you're going to give us something that is so horrendous to put our lives in danger and their lives in danger, that's all on your heads. You don't care about us. We're volunteers. We don't even get paid. Then I heard that maintenance on these so-called ponds that they're going to put in is going to be done by the town. Well, I live on Babcock Lane. It's unincorporated village of Round Cove. We weren't allowed to form our own village. So I bought that property in 1969 and has yet to be paid. There are holes in that thing that are 12 inches deep. Nobody does anything about it. You think they're going to do anything different with the pond? This town will do the least they can to maintain anything. They are not responsible people that are governing our existence. They all, and then every time a big project has been put in, and I've been here in this county for 70 years. I saw the first project go in Tappan. They put a bunch of capes up next to 303. And the promise was that all these people are going to pay taxes, and it's going to make life wonderful. Well, guess what? The infrastructure that has been put in to support it, the additional costs, the additional fire equipment, all those things added up, and guess what? They didn't pay enough taxes to cover the expenses that were incurred by that town. And that's true of any project. The more you build, the more the town's expenses go up. And the expenses that you charge people to live in those houses isn't enough to cover what's happening here. It's just totally irresponsible to put that many people on a piece of land and just say, oh, they're following the rules. Well, guess what? It's for you people to decide if the rules are being followed properly and if something that's going to result from this is negative for all of us that exist here. I've existed for 70 years in this county. My parents existed much longer than that in this county. And you're just telling us, well, tough dogs. You know, the new people coming in, we'll give them whatever they want. It's not right. Not right. And would be better if you're going to go on that piece of property and put 4 buildings up that are 30 stories tall and maintain parking within the buildings and maintain the natural existence of the properties. What you're doing is crazy. You're forcing these people to put up 4-story buildings, which is not advantageous to them. It's not helping them. They want to live together. They want to live as a community. You're telling them, spread it out all over the place. And we'll take care of the roads, we'll take care of this, and we'll take care of that. Come on, get some responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Drew Burke. Drew Burke, 284. That's the right place. Drew Burke, 284. I just wanted to ask, when you get on these boards, you get appointed by the state lines and crew. The councilman, they put you on the board. They take through a background check to make sure that you're educated in these kind of fields. Is
the other thing too is that you have 37 nationalities in the town of Rathmore. I grew up in the town of Rathmore, I went to Spring Valley High School, Rockland Community College. And the board would think would be more diverse with 37 nationalities. And I don't see that. It seems like the same as the school board. The school board owes $5 million to BOCES. And, you know, it seems like it's a loaded.
Work has nothing to do with this
I
application.
know, but it seems like, but the same as that board, it's loaded with the kind of conflicts of interest with the same people who want these projects. So it's kind of a conflict of interest. Outnumber the other board members, and when you vote on this project, you know, hopefully vote no, but you gotta follow. The other 37, the other 36 nationalities, gotta be faithful to them, all right?
Bruce Levine.
Bruce Levine, 9 Robin Hood Road, Montebello, New York, 10901. I am still representing Dr. Youngworth, who lives on Scenic Drive. By the way, we won our appeal, and it's going forward on the underlying secret. I want to make just a few points if I can, if I can limit them up. One is, you're dealing with a final site plan here. You're actually dealing with two of them. And I'm just going to address the big one. You're dealing with the final site plan. To say secret is done is a misunderstanding of what secret is. The finding statement and all the documents that go with it, and all the mitigations that are required as part of it, is supposed to inform your final decision here. It's not like it's something we do and we put it away. The whole point of it is to get you, who are the decision makers here, to consider what it says and what the findings are. And any changes to it, any changes to mitigation, it's your responsibility to ask the questions. Not to just sit there and let people come to you and say, okay, you know, let's check that one, no, that's not right. This is, well, we have a problem, this is a minor thing. That's not, you have to really, it's your responsibility. It's your responsibility. So if there are changes to how recharge is going on, you need to require something about this. You need to require the town's engineers to look at what they're doing and to give you something, as Mr. Scott said, in writing. You know, it just astounds me. And this latest thing with the Army Corps of Engineers should say something to you about this, right? The fact that you, the town board, the courts, have been told, you were told once again tonight, that there is no problem, that everything complies with the Army Corps of Engineers. And you were told, look at the January 5th letter. But they didn't read you that letter. You're talking about only a teeny piece of the thing, right? They didn't read you that letter. You know, I've been doing this a long time in various ways. I was counsel to the legislature. I hate to tell you how long ago, probably 15 to 20 years ago now. I remember a particular drainage project, and a particular engineer said, we have in our hands permits from the Army Corps of Engineers. We have permits in our hands for a box culvert on the Pascack Brook. Those permits never existed. Never existed. You were told. I'm trying to imagine what you like. I was sitting there. You were told you have no problem with the Army Corps of Engineers approvals on the wetland delineation. And now you have a document staring you in the face, telling you that that was false. False. Now, I want to be honest about this. Susan Shapiro told you that there are implications to lack of a jurisdictional determination. I'm not an expert in that. I don't know if she's right or wrong about the need of every smaller wetland to count as waters of the United States that require permits to do anything. But I can tell you this, You shouldn't listen to the people who told you a falsehood. You should require the town attorney to give you a written memo of law with citations to tell you what that determination is. You should get documentation. That memo should be supported by documentation from the Army Corps of Engineers to make sure you know what the reality is and not to accept it. I don't know, but in most people's businesses, when they have been proved, they've been palpably, in a proven way, the decision makers have been deceived. You know, that happens to be a kind of an issue which courts look very favorably upon in denying applications. Denying an application for a town, for a subdivision, or a site, in this case, site plan. You can deny it. You can deny it. So I think, I don't want to belabor it. You know, I just want to say to you, I said to you this once before, I'm just going to repeat it one short time and I'll stop for that very short time. The Columbia Gas Pipeline, you have this letter. Once again, you were told, so, you know, whatever the language was, it's a no contest letter. We're not going to argue, right, about it. It's not Columbia Gas who is vested with the authority to decide whether it's good planning or bad planning, whether it's good for the people who are going to live there, whether it's good for the people who are living around there, whether it's good for the environment, however you want to look at it, whether it's good for the taxpayers. It's not for Columbia Gas to make the determination here. It's for you to make the determination in your hearts, in your souls. If you know what's right and wrong, every one of you. Please, deny this application. If you can't deny it tonight, and you want to get those opinions, and you want to get the engineers, and you want to find out, then take your time. There's no reason. You don't have a DEC permit, you don't have a drainage permit. Keep the hearing open, but don't just keep it open. You, as a board, request legal opinions, engineering opinions, better documents, with enough time for you to review, let alone the public. Public too. Thank you.
The last name, you'll forgive me. Elf.
Hi, my name is Elf Ahern. I live at 236 Haverstraw Road.
Excuse me, what is your last name? Can you spell your last name, please?
Ahern, Ahearn.
Okay, thank you very much.
I just wanted to say that I would really love to be a good neighbor and that I would welcome anybody to live up the street from me. Any nationality, any creed, any religion. But it just seems to me that this is a really awful imposition on everybody in our neighborhood. And a lot of people are terribly, terribly upset about this application. And a lot of people have very, very good reasons to be upset. The Mahwah River has already vastly overflowed its banks, and we all know that climate change has made a difference in our 100-year flood regulations and what have you. And so there are going to be a lot of people who are adversely affected by the runoff from such an intense development. Also, Route 202, I live on Route 202. I walk across Route 202 to get my mail every day. And right now I have to wait and wait and wait, and cars go zipping by, but in not too much time, maybe 2 minutes at the most, I can go across the street and I can pick up my mail and I can come back and I can be very happy in my beautiful home on Route 202 in this wonderful town of Ramapo that we all want to live in. But with a development this intense, Route 202 is just going to simply become untenable for people like myself to live on. And I really do ask you, as the last attorney who spoke said, to, check every P, dot every I, cross every T, make sure that you know for sure that this is something that you cannot legitimately deny. Because I think that there is room for real, happy development on this property, where lots of families, wonderful families that we can share this space with, can move in. And I would really love to have heard that at some point in this application, this board recommended a less intense use of this property. And I've spoken enough and I've taken enough of your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Eric Knight.
It's Eric Knight from Stony Point, New York. It's the first time I'm seeing this project. I'm amazed at the scale of it. I'm a fourth generation resident of Stony Point, the area. I live about 15 minutes away. I love the area. I go to college here, I go to Suffern. My concern, I don't know too much foreign language. Everyone told me that. I love everyone. I have a concern, and I have to express it. That the town may close its eyes to, a community that might be, is it going to be dedicated to one particular sect? That's all I want to know. I mean, I maybe have to be told, maybe I won't be told. I've been told that there's no answers. I know that a project of this scale, there's got to be a business plan. I mean, we're talking about some serious coins here. So, I don't know, John D. what? 20 million, something better? I don't know, man. But someone with that kind of money would probably have an idea what the houses are going to sell for, or what they're worth, and you would think they want to encourage sharing that information. And if they don't share that information, they don't want to share that information, I would think usually like if people, they may be hiding something. The only thing they'd be hiding is they don't want to scare people. I notice that there's a room full of scared people here. They come across as angry. They're scared, what's going to be built in their backyard. I just think what my concern is, you got a beautiful piece of property, and if we're going to violate this piece of property, which it is, it's going to be violated one way or another. Now, it is. We always build, wherever we build, we violate the property. I can deal with that if it's going to be in a diversified scale that's going to help everybody, because the jobs that I've seen on town boards and the community, it's all about community. It's all about everybody. We all help everybody, not one group. Now, if there seems to be a sentiment out there, a taste that might be used for one group, and everyone's saying it's being put in one group, prove me it's not. Because if not, you're being naive. And, if you approve something and you have a shadow of a doubt, I mean, if there's a shadow of a doubt that this is going to be not used for everybody, it just needs to be taken into consideration, because it's your job to help everyone, the community. I mean, God gave us this wonderful land, and the one that you just shared, I mean, I think that's wow. The parking lot's saying it's overbuilt, but that's not my job. That's not my determination. If everyone's going to have a chance to use it, great. And I can, but it's going to butcher the land. That's it. I'm from far away. I heard about this, and it's really an impressive job. I just think more information about the houses should be released, and if they're not being released, maybe there's something hiding that needs to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Dr. Nancy Grosso Finger.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Nancy Grosselfinger, 150 Somerset Drive, Sacramento, New York. I'm here this evening not to speak on the basis of the discussions tonight, but to address the board about my concerns about the way I have observed operations this evening. It is my understanding from Robert Freeman from the Committee on Open Government that in the event that a person is participating in a meeting and they believe that something is not proceeding properly, that you should stand to raise point of information. I didn't want to disrupt the proceedings this evening, so I signed myself as a speaker rather than to stand. But it is my understanding from the Open Government Law, recent decisions and opinions of the past year, when a body is going to discuss documents in a public meeting, that those documents should be made available so that the members of the public can attend more meaningfully and intelligently by having access to those documents in advance on the website, if it's possible, if it's within the capacity of the organization to load them onto their website. And if cannot be done in a timely manner, that those documents should be available in paper copy in sufficient quantity to be distributed to the persons who are anticipated at the meeting at the time. This evening we had some documents being discussed with council as to whether or not there was agreement, disagreement, problem, not problem. And many of us could not follow that discussion meaningfully because I don't know that there were any such documents available to us. So I would ask that you please consult with the website of the Committee on Open Government to see if what I'm saying to you is not the truth, and adjust your proceedings in the future so that citizens and interested persons can join you in following what you're undertaking in their behalf. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Bruce Simon.
Bruce Simon, 31 Utopian Avenue, Suffern. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for having this hearing. Thank you for hearing us. I'm not going to speak on any of the environmental issues. I think those have all been discussed much better, much more in depth than other people can. Plus, Mr. Klein, due respect, you said please don't bring up things that have already been discussed.
Thank you.
I will bring up, though, the fact that I am a former planning board member in the village of Suffern. I'm also a former trustee on the village board in Suffern. This is not about politics, so don't go that way. Having served, I'm sorry, I'm not running for any office tonight. Having served on both of those boards, and Mr. Lang, you know me to be an honest man and a fair man, it is fair to say that boards have to make their decisions based on the best available information. Not everything's perfect. You make your vote, your choices based on what you have presented to you. You have been presented tonight and other meetings with conflicting information. Some of it's to be determined, some of it is disputes about language, that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, the members of the board are going to make their determination based on that information. But the members of the board also know that if they choose to vote for something based on what they know to be flawed and bad information, they can be held liable. There is immunity to the board members and there is immunity to elected officials in the course of doing their jobs in good faith. If you have been presented with information that contradicts that which has already been given, which clearly states that there are issues and there are problems that need to be addressed, and you choose to move forward anyway, there is every possibility, and knowing some of the people in this room, there is every likelihood that the five of you may, individually and as a group, be held personally liable for whatever happens after that. That will be the first part to bring up. The second part, although I am not running in the village of Suffern or anywhere else, I've done my time and no longer wish to do that anymore. If this project moves forward as currently constituted, I'm not going to address the environmental issues. It is fair to say there will be impact to the Mahwah River. That impact to the Mahwah River is going to directly impact the drinking water in Suffern, as well as farther downstream. It is also going to impact the people in Bergen County and farther downstream from that. I cannot imagine that there will not be repercussions to those decisions. I cannot imagine that the people in Suffern will stand to have their precious and clean drinking water subjected to possible contamination when this could be stopped. Or at the very least, this could be held until all questions are answered. If there is an issue with the Army Corps of Engineers, let that be answered before there is a decision. If there are issues with the DEC, let those issues be settled until and unless, and please don't vote. You can vote, again, as a former planning board member, I know full well that you can and you have the right to vote with conditions. You may grant conditional approval to things. You also have the right and the ability to say no. Those are your choices. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Okay, that completes the list of speakers that I had. The applicant wish for...
Before, I just want to respond to something to Mr. Cozen. Mr. Cozen alleged and asserted that the decision in voting against the planning board, Judge Walsh annulled the decision with respect to subdivision approval. I respectfully disagree with him for the following reasons. The judge's decision related to the second cause of action related to architecture review. And in it, the town contends that a matter of custom site plans. So that's what that cause of action referred to, and the court annuls the planning board's decisions and remits this matter. With all due respect to Mr. Cozen and his law firm, those decisions related to site plans and not the subdivision. Subdivision approval was upheld fully by Judge Walsh. And that is why we did not ask the applicant to submit a new application for final subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berman. Mr. Rock.
Mr. Chairman, we believe that the issues have been aired and we presented our side, and we request that the public hearing be closed.
You don't wish to respond to any of the comments made this evening?
No, we believe that they've been aired before and several times.
Okay, it's your call.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rock. Okay, members of the board. Mr. Berman, what are our options?
Your options are to keep the public hearing open and adjourn it to another date to allow either additional testimony in general or for responses from either the applicant or anybody else with respect to specific issues. You can adjourn it if you wanted the applicant to respond to issue A, and that would allow the public to speak only on that issue. You could close the public hearing and reserve decision. Then you have, I believe, 62 days under the statutes to grant a decision. Or you can close the decision, close the public hearing, and make a decision granting it or denying it. So you have four options. Keep the public hearing open unlimited or for a limited purpose. Close the public hearing and reserve decision. Close the public hearing and grant, or close the public hearing and deny.
Okay, anybody on the board wishing to make any motions?
I wish to make a motion to close the public hearing. There is a
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Isel Eisenbach to close the public hearing and reserve decision for a future date. There's a second to the motion. All those in favor?
Who made the second, please?
Dora.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Whoa. Unfortunately, there's
There's a motion on the floor, but a question to it.
Okay.
Discussion on the motion.
Usually that's before you vote.
Well, it was not. So I want to find out if it was going to be asked. Did my homework. Now, due to the fact that the client refused to answer questions that was brought up tonight, and there are a lot, I made notes myself, I was hoping that something could have been answered, things that I were told that I have legal documentation that was not accurate. I don't want to be lied to. So before I close anything or vote to have it where my approval to say let's close it, there are questions that I still have that are outstanding. So I need clarification, documentation of things that I have questions on that have not been answered from what I have as legal documentation correctly. So, before I can make approval to close it, I need 100% clarification what is correct. So, if we wish to close it, there's a lot of questions that need to be cleared up before such can be done so. That would be my way of going.
I would imagine that I can't speak for the applicant, nor do I intend to speak for the applicant. My guess is that the applicant didn't respond because he felt that he made his case front to see it. Whatever rights of your own police are, that's up to them. That's their decision. We have to make a decision whether we want to close the public hearing or not, whether we've gotten all the documentation. I know very well that this happens all the time, that the applicant will say one thing and the public may say something else. It's your word, my word. We have documentation. We have the approval of the CPRC, of our professional staff, who reviewed everything.
But we don't have all of our professional information. And the main one that I will go by is Mr. Buckley, his information that is a major standard and requirement that has not been approved officially in writing to this board about the concerns that were brought out. There are others also from letters of the Army Corps of Engineers that I was told tonight that everything was fine on and approved on, which states and reads is not correct. Other concerns that I can go down the list that I made, that I have a major issue of approval or closing something that is not 100% accurate.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
you care to address Mr. Scott's concerns?
Would you have any
Put his opinion on Mr. Scott.
In response to your question, it's not for me to comment on what Mr. Scott is seeking or not. That all I can say is a motion is before the board to close the public hearing reserve decision. If, based on what Mr. Scott has said, Mr. Eisenbach wishes to, withdraw his motion, because we haven't had a complete vote, that's up to him. Otherwise, there's a motion on the floor. There was discussion by Mr. Scott where he is requesting that in response to the motion, that the motion be withdrawn and the applicant be requested to respond to various concerns. You can do that. You can keep the public hearing open, or you can, like we did back in December of 2011, you closed the public hearing and allowed 5 days, 7 days, whatever, for additional documentation from either the applicant or or various members of the public. If there's a motion on the floor, unless Mr. Eisenbach wants to withdraw his motion, the motion has to be carried. Well, then Mr. Scott, unless it's not withdrawn, Mr. Scott has to either vote no or abstain.
I'm not sure of the motion.
You're saying the motion.
If we
Right.
we can get some more of this information.
No, like like we did back in December of 2011. At that time, at the date, I was not at that present, but present at the hearing, at the date of the second hearing, you closed the hearing. However you allowed, you gave an additional, I don't remember how the initial time, you gave people, either the public or the applicant, to respond to questions that came up at the hearing. Based on those, you closed the public hearing, you had X amount of days for submission of additional comments, and then a period of time after that, the board made a decision.
Amend your motion to close the public hearing and allow 2 weeks.
Whatever, that's up to you.
2 weeks for the public or for the applicant to hand in any additional information in writing to the office, within 2 weeks from today.
What additional information? It needs to be very specific.
Well, that's up to you. It's decided. If you want it, look, you can either be, it could be whatever people want to say. If the public, Mr. Cozen, Ms. Shapiro, Ms. Munis wants to submit additional stuff on any issue, they have the right to do that. Or if you want to limit it to certain issues, that's up to you.
Another question.
That would have to be whatever the motion that Ms. Eisenbach or anybody else would make. You can limit the additional comments, or as you did the last time, it was whatever people wanted to submit.
You didn't offer us the option of going back to the applicant and saying, we want the additional information, we need some additional approval. Would you consider reducing the number of units?
You can do whatever you want. If you want to make any requests, I can't tell you there's no right or wrong. If you want to ask the applicant to consider, the public hearing's still open, that if he can downsize the project, you have every right to do it. And he'll give you whatever his decision is. It's up to you. You have every right to, you are the planning board, you have every right to make any request within reason with respect. He has a right to apply for whatever permitted under the zoning law, which is what he's done. He's permitted to apply under the MRA zone, the number of units that he's seeking. You have the right as a planning board, for good planning reasons, if you wish to ask him to reduce the size of the project.
I have for good planning reasons some questions about the size of the project. I'm really uncomfortable with this much housing this close together, and especially so close to a gas line. I'm really sorry. It looks to me like if a certain amount of housing were removed from this, you could put the units further apart, you could make the roads wider for the fire trucks, and you could eliminate some of these houses that are right on top of the gas line, and it would make the whole project so much more palatable to so many more people, would reduce a lot of community unhappiness.
Thank you.
Also take the heat off of the planning board if we're directly liable for it, and I'm not comfortable with being directly liable for that. I'm not saying one-family housing is the only kind of housing that should be there. That's not what I'm suggesting.
That's what's there now, that's what should be there.
And I'd like to ask the applicant to consider that. If we made this decision to close the public hearing, except for
Well, the only issue that raises, if you say to the applicant tonight, can you reduce the project? And he says he's going to knock off 10% of the workforce housing at 10%. The public has the right to see what the revised layout is going to be.
What's wrong with that?
So that means if you're going to do that, you're going to have to, if you ask the applicant and he's willing to do that, you have to continue the public hearing being open to allow the public to comment on those. So I just want to know, that's your request, and it has an action. It's up to you if you want to do that. And the applicant.
Request. Make a motion request. There's a motion on the floor right now. Let's go through with that. There's a motion on the floor, close public hearing, with allowing for 2 weeks for either the applicant or the public, and then any additional comments to the office within 2 weeks from today.
Did you amend that motion?
Yes.
No. So the motion's on the floor.
Yes, I will accept it.
Let's read it.
Except what?
If the members of the public could give the proper respect to the board that they gave to you, would be appreciated.
To close the public hearing, you're amending your motion, to close the public hearing, reserve decision, and allow for the submission of written comments from anybody from 2 weeks from tonight until whatever 2 weeks from tonight is, which is
Like January 30th.
January 30th at 5 p.m. Is that your motion, Mr. Eichenberg?
Or as an adoption.
Please.
Yes.
Okay.
That doesn't include a change, right?
Is there a second to the motion? Second by Yaakov Bosch. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. All those opposed? Motion doesn't carry. I'll entertain another motion.
A simple motion?
Huh?
A simple motion?
Any motion. Any motion.
A simple motion, a simple motion that will make me very happy is to get everything that was basically, said there were no issues or problems to be submitted to the town, so the board can look at it as far as no issues in writing. From the Army to Tom Buckley to making sure all evaluations from wetland approval or whatever else has to be done, from retaining walls requirements of 4 feet to 12, as long as I get it in writing, I'm fine.
Mr. Scott, if I may, there's going to be issues,
It's
as
going to be
Simon
issues.
said, where person A says A
Yes.
and person B says B.
Yes.
I think you have to be more specific as to what written documentation you're seeking from.
The written documentation,
I mean, if I may, I'll summarize some of the issues, and you'll tell me if you hold on. There was an issue about compliance with Mr. Buckley's comments regarding the 30 feet height issue and that dead-end road, I think it's E29.
yes, as well as space between the village, yes.
Okay, there was an issue raised about the what?
No, that's the retaining wall.
No. The retaining wall is not just, I'm going first what my notes indicate, so you bear with me. The first issue was involving Mr. Buckley reference to that dead-end road and the 30-foot in height.
Yes.
Okay. With respect to the walls, that's up for you to decide. There's no right or wrong. The county wants the walls to be 4 foot, the applicant feels 12 foot is sufficient. That's up to you. There's nothing that we get in there. Agree with me? No, I don't, I agree with you.
Yes, with the county, that's where it's.
No, but he's responding.
That's
It's up to
up.
you when you make your
Yes.
decision, because since that's a condition of the GML, even if you grant, someone makes a motion to grant final site plan, you have to vote to override.
Yes.
So there's no other, it's a decision for you to make. There's no, to me, any other additional information that
Totally
the applicant
understand.
can do. Let me keep going. Hold on. I don't know what, but you may want additional clarification with respect to the issue of the Army Corps.
Yes.
What that is, it's up to the applicant to submit, and you'll decide whether it's sufficient or not.
And it's just not about.
That's with respect to the wetland, right?
Yes, completely. It's just not about the approval of this, it's the main concern of any type of approval that I can speak on that comes from me on this board, being a board member here, is the safety of the people. That's my main concern, is the safety of the people. If it's overpopulated, I don't care which area it's in, who's living there, it's about the safety of the people, and that's the major concern. So it's not about,
keep going. You want anything with respect to the pipeline?
Well, not just the pipeline, safety of it as far as what can be considered a populated in an area, for the safety of even with the car apparatus, getting in there, the safety of, yes, pipelines or.
I would say fire safety.
The safety of whatever can affect other communities that are near and surrounding that area, hazardous materials, other wastes, whatever can go into the water lines and stream lines. So it's a major concern that it's just not that area of people that are actually living there, but other areas of the town that can be affected by.
I just call it as a general thing, public safety.
Gotcha, that's fine.
You know, I can't. I work alone, thank you. Columbia, again, you want anything with respect to, Tim, anything with respect to Columbia, anything further with respect to Columbia again?
Yeah, they definitely have to have improvement. I need something basically saying that.
Another letter from Columbia.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
With the actual, basically, I'm not sure if they actually saw the actual layout or the
It's clear, I just want to make
that
clear
needs to
what
be
we're
made
talking
clear,
about.
not just.
Of this plan or the final plan?
Please.
Which plan are we talking about?
Anything with respect to stormwater management?
We need approval, yes.
Stormwater with respect to the issue raised by Mr. Cozen?
Yes.
The town law versus DEC? Which one controls? Okay, and Mr. Doan. How about Mr. Goldman referenced the highway design manual?
Yes, that is a major concern.
Mr. Quinn, about traffic, about the use of incorrect count models. Excuse me if I misstate what that is. Okay, something with respect to Ms. Units mentioned with respect to the drainage agency, that, you know, that we have all the complete information that they have reviewed. You feel that you have sufficient information, Mr. Rox responded to the issue that Ms. Units talked about the dam versus the impact?
I don't.
Okay, so you want more information about the dam plan as it affects the project?
We'll see the knowledge.
Well, that's not the dam, that dam,
I-
the dam.
Yes, I understand.
That's
Not
the dam.
It has to be certified and on.
Yeah, 500, talked about.
Got them all, more than I'm supposed to have.
Anything, do you want, anything in reference to the questions raised by 2 and 3, the speakers about personal liability?
That would be very much on that, yes.
Okay, I think that my, you know, that unless the board feels anything else.
Violation of zoning?
No.
Really?
The board wants to recognize you, go right ahead. I work as a solo.
I just know if you get a copy of the
As
list.
long as you speak to them, let me finish. When I'm done, then you can make whatever comments you want to make. Okay, anything about recharge or anything?
We need that.
Recharge. Okay, I think that hits what I believe that you would.
I'm good.
So to recap, your motion would be to close the public hearing and allow X amount of days for comments on those issues, both from the applicant and the public.
Yes.
But not additional comments, comments addressed to those
Yes.
issues. that you, that we recess.
Can I recommend
We
one?
recited.
Yes.
Now, apparently I hear somebody in the background who wants to speak to the board that my list is not complete. So I can't listen to them, it's up to you, if you want to listen to them. Well, you know, I can't hear, so I clearly can't hear.
He's referring to the fact that my hand is raised.
Be quiet, please.
Yes.
You have, the public held it.
It's called mitigation.
Okay.
So the motion on the floor is to close the public hearing. Let me recite what I believe Mr. Scott's motion. The motion is to close the public hearing. Close the public hearing. Reserve decision and allow the applicant and the public to comment on those issues that I discussed and Mr. Scott agreed with. And that would be 2 weeks from today, so it would be, I think, January 30th at 5 p.m. in Mr. Nally's office. And then after that, you would have approximately 42 days to make a decision. That is the motion.
That would be my motion.
If you wish to add something, Ms. Green, you have to ask.
Yeah, I would like to add to that we speak, that the applicant consider reducing the housing units by 10%.
Then that motion, if he made a motion, there's a motion on the floor. There needs a second.
Anybody, okay, there's a motion on the floor by Scott, close the public hearing and leave it open for 2 weeks.
No, I'm
sorry.
Reserve
To close the public hearing, reserve decision, and the public as well as the applicant, has up until 5 p.m. on January 30th to hand in any additional comments in writing based on the list that was just developed.
Those issues only.
And we're very clear that it's gonna be in writing, not from hearsay, but in writing.
No, wait a minute. No, time out. Written comments, it's your decision to say, if Mr. Rock says exactly what he says tonight,
I need
then
written
that's up to you to make a
comments
decision.
from the sources.
Right, it's a written decision. Now,
Yes.
whether he wants to get something from DEC, drainage agency, or he just wants to submit his own thing,
Yes.
and same thing with the public. They can continue to sue their same legal arguments, etc. You can determine whether you think they're valid responses or not when you make a decision.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make one minor?
Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Jacob Basha. All those in favor of the motion? All those in favor of the motion?
Can I then maybe the additional?
There's a motion on the floor now.
Yeah,
There's
that's
a
fine.
motion.
Okay.
Okay, show this unanimous. 5-0.
So disgusting.
Now, Dora, you wish to make another motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that the applicant consider reducing the number of housing units. Really ideally between 10 and 12%, but I think.
Time out. I don't believe the decision you just
Well, he
made.
said I could.
With all due respect to the chairman, I give legal advice to the board. There's a motion, it's done. The decision is made. The decision is made, the matter.
He just
The
cut her off.
decision has been made by the board. With all due respect to
Basically
the
what
audience,
happens all the time.
the decision has been made. You close the public hearing, you reserve decision. Ms. Green made an attempt for Mr. Scott to amend his motion. He didn't. You can now ask, decision is made, it's done. If you want to make, not a motion, if you want to make a request to the applicant, by all means, you have that right.
I'd like to make that as a request.
And if you, with all due respect, you can make the request, you can ask the applicant to respond in writing. He can say, no, he doesn't want to, and that's his response. It's up to you. It's up to you, make whatever request you want.
I'd like to make that request, and I'd like to request it be responded to in writing.
And that would be reduce the size of the entire project or
No,
one
just reduce-
particular part? No, I don't know.
I think it's the
Real
whole.
quiet, please.
The way I look at it is if you look along the Columbia gas line and you take about 50 units out, and that's a mix of single-family houses and multifamily housing, you really clean that right up at just at 10%. And I think you can make a lot of people less contentious.
Okay. Is that just limited in the pipeline or just?
But it's apartments and single-family houses.
So in 10% of the entire project?
Yeah, it comes out to about that, and that isn't
Oh, yeah,
exactly which way it goes.
just clarifying so he knows what to respond.
Do you need help with that? So make it easier if you need help with it, then, since there's a lot of concerns, as you're saying, and since it's a large size area and most of the area is still, pipelines, why not send it out to see if you guys can come back and let's try to reduce it by 50%?
Right.
There you go.
Well, that would be guaranteed, mostly definitely would be there, right? There'd be less conjunction and everything else, and not as much would be, let's see what happens.
They're going to, if they come up with a plan that's 50%, a reduction of 50%, and the condition of a grant of the site plan approval is a reduction of that size, they're going to, Scenic is going to sue.
Oh, yeah, they'll sue the vote, yeah. I can make money. There's fucking 139 homes right now, they can make money. I can't say that I'm like got a lot of energy, but I'm still
Yeah. And the only reason I came is because of you and Suzanne.
Oh, thank you.
All right, I'm